focusing on my halo light, and I got all this here, but it was great. And the banter and the comments, it was very a lot of different perspectives. So I love that.
Yeah, I'm glad you watched. I'm surprised you watched the whole thing, just because I know you got stuff going on, but I'm glad you did. And like I like to do on After Hours is I like to kind of get my After Hours guest perspective on the show that I just did. And is there anything from that episode that kind of stuck out in your mind as being super interesting, or anything that kind of resonated with you or didn't even?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, a couple of things for sure. Obviously, the looking for the positive, which we kind of talked about, where I mean, just even the idea of one door closes, you know, the door of buying the cards that you want at a low price, that door has closed, but a lot of other doors have now opened for collectors, new or veteran collectors, that, you know, now their collections worth 3 times as much. And for you, for example, you have a platform to now talk about your collection, your experience, and all this. And, you know, with your skill set on how you're able to interview people and manage all the comments and all this kind of stuff, I feel like when ESPN or Fox Sports or someone comes calling because they want to do a show, an ESPN radio show or something like that, they're going to be looking on the podcast, on the Apple podcast, on YouTube and all this. And so now collectors have that upside, even if they can't get the cards as easily. They can't go to Walmart and Target and rip wax the way they would before. Other doors are opening. So I always see it as like, all right, you know, just like that beach reference, if you're a local in Hawaii that's grown up on this nice isolated beach and you were the only one surfing every single day and it was great, people find out, they're like, hey, this beach is amazing. They bring their family, their friends, and all of a sudden it becomes flooded and buildings are going up. And I feel like that's exactly how a lot of collectors would feel. And so you feel a bit bitter at first, but the opportunities are, well, did you buy some land that you can now rent out, that you could sell? Is there a way you could open a restaurant? Can you be a tour guide? There's just, you can look for the negative or you could look for the positive. And I used to look for the negative all the time. I had to go inside. I had to do my work. I had to realize, you know, I was a pretty cynical person. And I had to say, you know, what's the point? It's not, there's no point of looking in the negative, looking for the negative in everything. And one of the biggest sayings that changed my life was everything happens for you and not to you. And that completely changed my life, because now I'm like, I'm not the victim. It's all happening for me, even if I don't realize it yet. And it's just a better way to go about it, in my opinion.
I love when you just said that, you know, let's not always look for the negative in things. But then my professional training included, you know, I'm a CPA. I'm designated as a CPA. And I've been that way for over 20 years now. I've been that way, a designated CPA for over 20 years. And one of the things that we are trained in our early years is to go into a client who you're auditing, and to go in, you don't go in expecting there to be fraud, but you go in with what they call professional skepticism. So you're not like searching for fraud. There's got to be fraud. Where is it? But you're always going to have this professional skepticism to keep you on the ball and making sure that you're not going to kind of just overpass an obvious fraudulent transaction or something that indicates that there's fraud going on in a company. So, you know, I kind of use I've used my professional training in my approach to the hobby, which is, let's look for the positives, but if there's something nefarious going on, let's be aware of it. But I'll use the hockey analogy. Let's stick handle around it, because, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to change. I've tried to change things in the hobby, and I tried to change the existence of patch faking, but it was impossible to change for one guy and people that he knew. It wasn't, I couldn't change it. So instead it's like, well, maybe I'm just going to stop collecting cards that are prone to having patches faked, because I'm worried about their reputation down the road, as an example. So, you know, you may see these issues in the hobby that could certainly breed negativity, but instead of letting it ruin the hobby for you, instead of letting it cause you to poison other people in the hobby who may really enjoy it, just stick handle around it. Find your lane that makes you happy, because this is supposed to be a hobby to distract you from the stressors of real life. Before we get on with things, Brad, if you had a thought on that, hold it for a second. So I'll say good evening again to everybody, because we jumped right in, as we do on After Hours. We open up the show mid-conversation. This is meant to be more children relaxing than the last show that I just did with Brad. So it's back-to-back Brad night, by the way. Brad Hartland and now Brad from the Comeback Card. So I want to just let everybody know, that's Brad from the Comeback Card Investor YouTube channel. Last night, he had graciously invited me to be a guest on his show. And after the show, we were kind of just shooting the poop. And I said, hey, you know what? My after-hour slot is vacant tomorrow. Do you want to join me? Graciously said yes. The timing worked, which is awesome. So that's Brad, Comeback Card Investor. Brad has a channel that has close to 10,000 subscribers. At the same time, you've been back in the hobby for like 11 months. And that's what I find to be inspirational and fascinating. And I also want to give you the opportunity to kind of explain what your angle is in the hobby, because for better or for worse, some people come into the hobby new can sometimes get some criticism out there. And I want to give you, as let's say that you're going to represent a lot of the people who are newer back in the hobby that are out there with channels and are putting out content. I want you to represent them. And I kind of want to share my thought that, again, I welcome everyone into the hobby, new, old, whatever. You're all more than welcome. So I want to hear your perspective. How have you been finding it? And what's it like building a channel pretty much from scratch on sports cards when you've been in the hobby for a short period of time?
Well, I mean, look, it's funny going back to February. I actually got back into the hobby after listening to Gary Vee for the 7th time in 2 months talk about sports cards. And I remember the first thought was, this sounds too good to be true, right? Sports cards, they're not worth a lot of money. Like maybe some of them are, but it's a fun thing for kids. That was still stuck in my mind because that's what it was when I was 12 years old. You know, I was collecting when I was 8 to probably 13, like somewhere around those years. And the idea of this, it's changed, it's fun, and there's money to be made, there's content creators, there's people opening packs and selling packs. I'm like, this is insane. And so right before COVID happened, I got so excited about it. I went down to the bullpen here in South LA, and I just went in there with a buddy of mine, and I said, and I was explaining to my old roommate at the time, I said, dude, you know, are you into sports cards? Were you as a kid? I'm getting really interested in this because I used to love it, but now I'm 30. I was 33 back in February last year. I was like, I'm getting so far away from my childhood. That was the biggest thing is, you know, in your 20s, you realize, man, childhood's long ago. You know, you've developed, you've become a new person over and over again. But 33 and not having kids, you know, if you have kids, maybe you rekindle that. But not having kids, I'm like, man, everything is just relationship. It's work. It's just grown up stuff. And I remember having so much fun as a kid, and anything to reconnect to that moment, I was game for it. And I was actually like thinking about like, well, I used to just shoot hoops. I used to play catch with a baseball. I used to go to the bumper cars from time to time. I used to go on roller coasters. And when I heard about the sports card thing, I was like, oh man, that was so cool. So I went to Bullpen and I bought a box of 2019 Donners. So there's Ja Morant's and Zion's, and it was $200 for the box. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? I used to go to Kmart and it was $30 for an upper deck whole thing of upper deck. And I could buy 2 of them if I had the allowance. $200 was one of the cheapest boxes at the time. And then after like a few months later, that jacked up. But I remember opening the box with my friend and thinking they were all worthless cards, right? There was a Marvel card of Zion, a Marvel card of LeBron, and these cards really spiked in value. But I just had so much fun. I was like, this is the coolest thing. And then COVID happened, the shutdown, the lockdown. And, not too many people know about my backstory, but my girlfriend, I haven't seen her in about like 10 months, 11 months, because she's been in Germany because her father had a heart attack and went into a coma. So she couldn't come back into the States. So I'm pretty much here by myself. My best friend, Andy, that you know of, he's in Florida. And I'm just thinking like, all right, I've gotten furloughed from my job, which was traveling around the country for different auto shows. So I know you're talking about assembling a Lamborghini or a Ferrari in the last live stream and stuff. So I was doing that. Furloughed, I'm stuck in the apartment. Now I'm like, well, the only thing that I was having fun with was looking into cards, right? I'm already deprived of my childhood, but now everything has gotten serious. Now there's death. Now there's going to be millions dying. Now no one's going to have work and all this. And I said, all right, let me just look further into cards because I need more and more escapism. And I was working, I had a business coach that had like a group training, and he's a guy that I respect a lot, and I look to him as a mentor. And he said, Brad, I know you're focused on your financial coaching, which is one of my biggest passions because I'm just naturally inclined to be good with my finances. I study it, and I was helping clients here in LA. But he's like, Brad, the only thing that is you seem excited about talking about is sports cards. What if you just did that for 30 days? Just as an experiment, 30 days of create a YouTube station, because I know you were modeling in the past, you took hosting classes, you're interested in on-camera stuff. What if for 30 days you just research cards, you buy them, and you document it on YouTube? And ever since that, I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. But the fulfilling side would have to be bringing in the financial element, because if not, it's only fun without the fulfillment. So ever since March, I think it was like late March, early April, I've just dived into it. And the deeper I've gone, the more fun I've had, and the more I can bring in what I have learned outside of the hobby over the last several years, the more fulfilling it became, because now I could actually bring something that's not talked about too much, or that's not common knowledge, to others that could use it and then gain in their personal life as well as in the hobby. So it's been great. I mean, it's been a huge silver lining in a very tough year for me and my girlfriend and a lot of other people out there.
Yeah, I've looked at 2020 and my doing this show and starting up the content as the silver lining to 2020 as well. I mean, obviously, I did get in early on a lot of cards, so that I have a silver lining of my collections become worth more. So I'm not going to hide that. But I also, the silver lining has been that I've been able to socialize and meet so many people because of doing the show and have all these awesome conversations. One, in terms of what you're doing, I think a lot of hobby veterans can be cynical towards some new people that are putting out content, because they think that, well, kind of what are your qualifications? Who are you to put out that knowledge? And what I've noticed watching your show is that that's not your game. You're not out there telling people what to buy or how to approach the hobby. Rather, you're sharing your experiences in the hobby. And I haven't seen everything you've done, but you have a large subscriber base. So you have a captive audience for the most part. You have tons of views on all your videos. So, how do you balance that yourself in terms of how you're coming across? How do you balance, I'm in the hobby for 11 months, so I don't have as much experience in it as some of the veterans do, but I also want to have a channel. I want it to be successful. I want to grow my audience. How do you remain authentic to the facts of the situation while also building your audience?
I think it just comes down to knowing who you are and what you're offering and saying, hey, this is my journey. These are my thoughts and my experiences in the hobby, and this is what I'm bringing from without. And I invite everyone to chime in, right? And if you've been in 3 months and you have a question, or maybe you notice something and you know something more than me, that's great too. But the channel is called The Comeback Card Investor. And some people will comment like, you don't even know what this term is. I'm like, the channel's not called I've done this for 10 years Card Investor. It's called The Comeback Card Investor because I'm coming back to it. I'm learning everything that's new. And it's more of like a vlog, right? It's a vlog where I can say, here are the cards I bought. Here's the rationale. And there's also a point now where I get a bit nervous because, I think of my mail day videos and I go like, man, I really want to be transparent and say, this is what I paid for the cards. This is my thought process. But then the cynical people would say, you're trying to manipulate the market. I'm like, but if I don't do that, then, hey, you're hiding something, right? Yeah. So it's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place where I'm like, look, I would rather say, don't buy these cards because I'm putting it out, but don't not buy these cards because I'm showing it. I want you to take it in the correct context, but I also know that some people will always decide to choose the lens at which they view you through. So, I kind of feel like, depending on, it doesn't matter if you are Republican or Democrat, if you are one side and you're interviewed by the news station of the other, that's how I feel sometimes with like certain people that are like, whatever you say or do, it's going to be twisted in the way that I want it to be. And I have to just be like, okay, I'm not going to stop, because when so many people say, thank you for that tip, it really helped me out, then, my cup is filled and I feel great doing it.
So you, and this is a question, you get a lot of positive feedback from your audience on on the message and your content that you're putting out there?
I mean, that is like the fuel to the fire, because when people, it's that one comment I told you yesterday, my favorite card right now, this card right here, which is a drawing by Eric Johnson, who depicted my bike accident. And you could even see the cake right there. He sent me this card in the mail. I had no idea who he was doing it. I'm like, someone took their time to draw this really well too. Really good drawing on a card, write a note on the back. And I'm like, that's the most flattering thing I've experienced in such a long time. And I've experienced that a few times. Different people have sent me cards. And I'm like, holy crap. So I feel like that only comes from offering everything I can, and I can only offer 10, 11 months of card experience and then whatever else from before that. But
you don't only offer card experience, you're also offering a bit of life experience and financial management experience. So I think I said it earlier, but I was a guest on your show last night. So we're doing a home and home series here right now. And one of the things you said on your show last night, you said that a quote you had learned from I forget his name, the guy who wrote Rich Dad. Yeah, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One of the things that stuck with you from when you were a kid was, don't just go out and buy that Porsche with the money that you're making. Take the money you're making, buy an asset that will provide income that will pay for that Porsche that you're buying. And I mean, it's a pretty standard kind of approach. I think, I don't know, like, obviously not everybody lives by it, but I think people, and maybe not even everyone's even aware that strategy exists, but several people are. But you said that on your show last night, and we probably had 200 people watching, and they all heard it. And to me, that was a real astute comment. And so you're not out there just giving advice on cards. You're saying, here's what I'm doing, and here's my mindset while I'm doing it. And it's based on my mentors along the way that you respect and that you've read, that have said things that have resonated with you. And it's obvious, if you read something 20 years ago and it's still in your mind, it obviously resonated with you. And that's what I like about your channel.
Well, I appreciate that, Jeremy. And that is my background. It's personal finance and personal development. And this would be fun if it was cards only, but it would not be fulfilling, because, the average American has $8,000 of credit card debt alone, right? The average divorce rate is over 50%. There's a lot of people that are obese. There's a lot of people that are depressed or struggle with a lot of illness. And this is the stuff I study daily. And this is the stuff that I'm like, my God, if people only knew the answers, like, they're out there, but if I could only lead by example in some way, or give one of these messages in a card related video as like a subliminal message or like a little hint, man, that would change someone's life. So that's where the fulfillment side comes in. That's where, I had a YouTube station before this. The first one was the Millennials Guide to Real Estate, where I was documenting my journey in real estate. And my second ever video was how to pass the real estate exam without reading the book, because I actually did it. And that video blew up because apparently a lot of people wanted to know that. And the more I realized I was doing this content, the more I realized that I just didn't love real estate on the day-to-day. I love the fact that I could invest in it. I can put tenants in there, and then that could pay for a vacation, and I could pay for my bills, and I could do whatever I want. So then I transferred that over to the Millennials Guide to Money, and it was going to be more about budgeting and using my certification as a Dave Ramsey preferred finance coach to like build a brand, but also throw this content out there. But it wasn't fun, right? Talking about budgeting and spreadsheets and money and all that, that's not fun. But being able to say, cards are fun, but what if I could instill the same lessons that I've learned from these people that are 10 times, 100 times more successful than me, but I know I'm on the right pathway? What if I could share that with someone out there that's 14 years old, right? Or a father that's 42 years old and the son's 10 years old. And I'm like, this is how you might get out of debt. Or what if you can get an investment that's going to pay for your next box break, right? that's the kind of stuff, because I'm worried that a lot of people will be breaking now and they'll be stretching themselves so thin that it'll be a turnover. It'll be like, I got in, I didn't get lucky, I'm out, versus how about you stay in for the long haul because you're doing it in a sustainable way.
How about learning from your mistakes, changing your course of action, respond, react accordingly, change your course of action, change your strategy, and maybe be successful the second time. That's my concern too, Brad, is that there's a lot of people, there are content providers out there that are giving you, I think we being the content providers refer to them as the top 5 videos. And I think that doesn't only encompass top 5 cards to buy this week, but it encompasses anyone who's out there telling an audience what to buy today. And I think that a lot of it is, I question it a lot of the time, because I don't know that it's going to result in people having longevity in the hobby. Because if that content creator was wrong in their prediction on this player, and that person that followed them loses money, they're going to have a bad taste in their mouth, leave the hobby, never come back. So I hope they find your channel. And this is a message I hope you send, is that, hey, if you're getting some advice that didn't work for you, come to this channel on how to maybe recalibrate and try again with a more solid strategy.
Well, on a couple of things on that is, I believe the content creators that are saying, buy these cards, they're trying to deliver the most value. So I believe that is their intent in most of the cases, is like, hey, how do I give you the most amount of value possible? You want to know what cards to buy? That's I can give you my suggestions, but it's not only damaging if it's wrong for the person that's buying, it's damaging for the content creator that is saying it, and that's wrong too, because now you have someone that loses that. So my suggestion is always, look for the thought process, right? See what is the thought process behind this pick, and then see all these things, piece it together, and then maybe test it out. Like, that makes sense, but I'll put in $10 on this guy, see if it pans out. It doesn't pan out. Okay, this guy says this is a reason why. Okay, that kind of makes sense to me. To me, it's all about devising the formula that works for you and testing things. And not everything's going to work out, but it's like, look, critical thinking. If you could learn how to think for yourself, I mean, and I'm an anti-news person. I'm like, I don't watch the news. The news tells me how to think, and that's the way I'm mad at this person for watching the other news station and that. And I'm like, look, we got to be beyond that, because there's your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. And I think when you have these long form discussions, you get to really get to the bottom of any issue and really touch on a lot of topics. But it's always about, hey, what are their points? What's the opposing points? What hasn't been said? What questions can I raise? And I think if you just do that in life, you will be so much further ahead, because most people don't want to do the work of thinking for themselves.
Yeah. Fair comment for sure. As far as you mentioned that the people that are doing that kind of content, they're trying to deliver the most value. And I think that's a fair comment. I think some of them might have some nefarious sort of motivations in that, okay, buy these 5 cards, and then I've already got them, I may go sell them. Yep. There's a lot of skepticism around that in the hobby. And so I think we have to be critical in our thinking and in assessing the content creator on what their motivations might be. And if you feel that their motivations are honest, then go with them and take their picks, and win or lose, take their picks if that's what you want to do. So
I would say there's a difference between skeptical and cynical. And I think that's the big thing, is like, one is just assuming everything is for the worst intention. And another one, which I think is more balanced, which is just a healthy level of skepticism, where there is a possibility that this content creator is putting this out for their own gain, not necessarily for my benefit. But that is something I'll always think about. I'll watch any video, and it's not even in cards. I'll look at it, like we watch the news, and then there's, oh man, depression's through the roof. And then the commercial break, here, are you depressed? Here's an antidepressant. I'm like, you just kind of like mentioned how people are depressed. And then the commercial break, it has an antidepressant. At least it makes me, it makes you think, right? But I think the point is not to say like, you are trying to manipulate people, you are doing this, and it's not being opposed where it's like everything you say is just great. It's more like, let's just get to the facts. Let's see if we can decipher what your true intentions are.
Yeah, the quick analogy I have just that popped in my mind is that, when I cross the street at a crosswalk, I'm gonna keep my eyes on all the cars that could be coming at me, even though they might be stopped, even though they have a red light. I'm still gonna look and make sure that they're stopping before I walk in front of them, because I don't want to get hit, because I'm gonna be a little skeptical about every driver out there in the interest of protecting my life. Okay. Let's I want to address the comments. I had a bit of it was challenging in the last episode tonight, so we're going to go through them right now and just say good evening to everybody. Welcome. We got Lucky K. Where are we? Lucky. There we go. Lucky K. Hello to you. I know we're like half an hour behind here, so I apologize. Sean Johnson, welcome back. Says, I'm kind of shocked Jeremy provides so many hours of great content a week without there even being a Patreon or something to kick in a few dollars for his efforts. Maybe in time. Appreciate that, Sean. There will not ever be a Patreon, though. Nothing against Patreon, just not what I'm doing. But I do appreciate the comment very much. Big Unit, welcome to the show. Steve Sir, welcome to the show. Brett, glad to have you back. Steve Sir says, did you used to break on Klutz and Chera a bunch? I don't know who you're talking to there, Brett, but I didn't ever break with them a bunch, but I certainly have broken with the fellas from Klutz and Chera. I've known them from before they even opened up their shop. Joe, great to see you. Super stoked. Happy to have you. Steve says, anyone collect anything else? Cards, coins. I'll leave that to the chat. Sean collects vinyl, books, and synthesizers. Chris is back. Good evening. Good evening. Collects books, cassettes, and movies. Nice. Dennis, my first live after hours. More content, the better about. Sorry, I'm gonna start. I'm trying to go fast.
You're doing great.
Live after hours show content, the better about this part of the sports hobby. I don't know if I read that in with the right.
We got the gist of it.
Sean, hey, thank you so much, Sean. Very, very flattering. I bought a ton of vinyl 10 to 20 years ago. Yeah, vinyl's cool. Not as an investment, but it turns in these are the best things are when you buy something not as an investment, but they turn into one. It's kind of nice to buy something for, say, pocket change or a few bucks, and then several years later it's worth big money.
This card right here, bought for $6 to $10. This is my favorite Kobe card, and it's hard to see now. I'm trying to angle it down with my webcam, and you see this was the Kobe card I was telling you about, where it looks like there's angel wings because that was Panini Crusade. But living here in LA with all of those murals everywhere with Kobe's death, it kind of like hits home a lot more. But it was one of those shouldn't have been a big deal, but it turns out to be.
Yeah. That's a nice card, actually. Brett collects beer coasters as well. Yeah, I collect Hard Rock Cafe pins because I worked at a Hard Rock Cafe in 1990 in Sydney, Australia. And I got the staff pin, and then I got some pins. They give out gold pins if you kind of went above and beyond. I had a couple of those, and some guy came into the restaurant one time and offered me like $150 for my gold pin. I had two of them. So, you got $150, 1990. A lot of money, right?
That's great.
I'll take it. I was like 19 years old. I'll take it.
Especially if you turned that over into cards back in 1990 and kept that to today.
I was buying Skybox basketball, the first year of Skybox basketball at some bookstore that sold cards in Sydney, Australia. There was no card shops there back then, but I found some Skybox back in the day. I think
I remember that set. Was that like the gold border with like the kind of rainbow kind of colors with the basketball? Yeah, it was like technology was being introduced. It was kind of funny.
The crazy graphics. Adam says, let's go Buffalo. I agree. I've got a really awesome Josh Allen card, so I'm a Buffalo fan now. David G, did I miss Vezina time? I showed my George Vezina card in the last episode. I'll show it again. I've had this since about 2007. Very proud of it. Love it very, very, very much. And awesome card. Known as the Grail in hockey to a lot of people. Stick handle around it. Can you give that to me in a knitting analogy? I can't, Fred. I can't. But I like you throwing that back. That's hilarious. How was the chocolate cake? Seb wants to know, Brad, how was your chocolate cake last night?
Man, I felt like hell today, which always means it was great. Because the goal is to eat so much that I don't crave it for a week. Like if I have a slice a night, then I just always crave it. But if I have a double slice and get to the point where I'm sick, then I'm good for the next week.
So if you don't know, Brad calls his live streams cards and cake. And so he talks cards and he has a piece of cake that he eats after.
Yeah, and at first I didn't think of this through too much, where I was going to eat the cake during the live stream, but it's really hard to talk and enjoy cake, especially when it's rich and you want to just be like, all right, hold on a second, give me 45 seconds just to enjoy this bite. It doesn't really work out. So I promise I eat it all. I mean, like I have like a really big appetite. So maybe at the National, I'll do like a night out where everyone just like hangs out and we can have a giant dessert together or something. But it was amazing.
Dessert night at the National. Daniel A says, this is still the best hobby in the world. I'm with you there. We have Ray-Ban joining us. I think Ray-Ban was watching last night on your channel. Thanks for coming over here, Ray-Ban. Great to have you.
Yeah.
Sean says, I love watching vintage pack breaks. Someone else's terrible financial decision is apparently my great entertainment. Yeah, and one of the problems I've had with some of the vintage breakers is that I see they touch the face of the card. They put their fingers on the card like this. They hold it like this. Like, hold your cards like this, especially when they're not your cards or customers' cards. Never hold them like this. Not in sleeve, just bare cards. That pisses me off when I see it. I just think, wow, what are you doing?
I would imagine vintage would be even more dangerous to touch the card too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that paper is going to be more sensitive to the acid or the oils in our the oils in our skin and all that, right? Yeah. Yes, Ray-Ban, this is live. This is live. They'll talk to you even if you say something smart or dumb. If you're talking about us, we will talk to you smart or dumb. Oscar Dad says, so many of the new YouTube channels have pivoted away from telling everyone to buy graded base cards. The flavor of the month now is all about consolidation into GOATs. Funny that. I've heard the consolidation game being talked about for several months now. But it's one of the angles that I can't disagree. I'm not big into consolidating. I have no motivation to consolidate. I don't buy cards for my personal collection with the intention to want to sell them in the near future. So I don't consolidate, but I'm definitely into GOATs. I think that if you do have an investing mindset and that's part of your collecting or hobby experience, then I'm all about the GOATs too. Makes sense to me. Ray-Ban, awesome. Thanks. I actually watch Brad's live feeds all the time. Just started following Jeremy yesterday. Glad to have you.
Hey, if you're not following Jeremy, you're 10 away, right? 10 away or so from 2000.
I was at 10 away before we came on. Almost, let's see what we may have picked up a couple more in the last few minutes. Let's see. We're at 19.
Well worth it.
We're at 1,994 followers. I've been looking forward to 2,000 for quite some time. So we're almost there, Brad. We're almost there. Thanks for your help as well. Sure. Appreciate it. Wow, Sean, thank you, buddy. I think you're amazing too, man. I think you're amazing too. Ryan says, oh man, stuck at home during COVID. Let's dig these old cards out. Yeah, exactly. That's what you were saying before, Brad. Just the best sort of dude. Oh, wow, gosh. Okay, I gotta sound. I'm gonna sound like I'm just trying to flatter myself here, but I appreciate it. I watched a heap of Jeremy's videos yesterday. Awesome content. Thank you. Yeah, and that's what's nice about collaborating with other content creators. Number one, I get to make more friends. I love making friends in this hobby. We're like-minded. There's no one I'd rather hang out with than hobbyists. Like all of my friends from high school, if any of you are watching, I'm not interested in you guys anymore. It's these guys I want to hang out with now.
You just lost 4 subscribers.
Unsubscribe.
Back down to 1990.
That's right. Sean says, jump back into the hobby the very week COVID kicked off. I had COVID really bad. Wow. Sorry to hear. Glad you're better. Ended up spending countless hours on eBay. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the theme of 2020 but the trick now is to retain guys like Sean in the hobby because we want you here because we love it. We think it's awesome. Why not grow it? I hope that most people are going to follow Sean's lead because it seems like he's going to stick in this thing versus people who are just going to come in, try and make some money, not be successful at it and leave, or make some money and leave. That's why I asked you last night on your show, Brad, do you love the cards themselves too? You love the game. I know that, and that's totally cool and fair. But do you also love the cards themselves? And you said,
I mean, I love the cards, but I'm not like, I don't want to have a whole big collection. I love the hobby and the intangibles more. I love the intangibles more. Like Andy, my best friend, I'm closer with him now because of the hobby than we've been over the last 12 years, like since we were 18. So I go, oh my God, the hobby brought us closer together. Right now we're talking sports, we're talking cards, we're talking YouTube, we're talking all these things. And when people comment, I broke a box with my daughter of WNBA cards. I'm like, damn, what if that is the father that is is kind of distant from his daughter, but that's the way to bridge the gap or to bond. I'm like, to me, that's more special than the tangible card, even though there are a handful of tangible cards. I'm like, man, that is sick. I really love this. But the community and what the hobby brings, I think, is better than any individual card.
Yeah, fair. Sean goes on to say, I was a massive collector as a kid, started with the boom in 1990 as a 6-year-old and carried up until around 2000, a time when the hobby seemed super dead. Yeah, I remember those times well. Not far off of myself, Sean. I came in 1980, though, had a shop from 90 to 90, 91 to 94 during that real boom junk wax era, slowed down the second half of the 90s and got back in pretty strong in 2000 as I was kind of starting my career and had some, was making some money and was able to buy cards. So Oscarda, this is a question right for you, Brad. He says, is Brad solely an investor or has his philosophy changed at this point in time? It's a good question.
I would say more investor than collector, but I think my big dream is to have a whole wall of Kobe Bryant's autograph stuff. Like, to me, that would be the coolest thing. So some cards, some basketballs, but I love the idea of collectibles like memorabilia. I just know that I have got to earn the money to be able to scale up. I think that's it, is like, I've got to be able to get to that point, especially as I pursue this full time. So it's like, if I had, rich parents, or if I had something like that, it'd be a lot easier to be like, here's my investments, here's my PC. But right now it's like, all right, for every 10 investments, then there's one that's going to go towards my personal collection.
Hey man, fair approach, right? I say it all the time. We got this collector investor dichotomy. We're all somewhere in the middle. We're not, very few people are on either extreme. So, if you're more towards investor, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, the hobby has proven that it has assets in it that are investable assets. So it's not like we have to snub people who are investing. Like, that's what the hobby's evolved into. It's no longer just buying the gum and getting cards with it, or buying cigarettes and getting a card for your kid. Like it wasn't like what this card kid, this is a cigarette card, and it wasn't sold. This card was sold because someone wanted to smoke cigarettes, not because someone was looking for a George Vezina card. So I'm with you on that. I think it's totally, it's fine. I like this comment. Sean said, at that point, I was a teenager and music and girls took more of my attention. I think we all go through that, but I kept the cards going. Girls, music, and cards.
What's funny is that when Sean was mentioning the years, I think he said I was 6 years old. And I was doing the math in my head because I got out right at about 2000 to 2002. And I remember the last guy I was really obsessed with was Tracy McGrady, who was playing for Toronto, the Raptors for a while, but he came down to the Orlando Magic. So I was a big Magic fan as a kid growing up in Tampa. The Orlando Magic were the closer team. I got huge into Penny Hardaway and Shaq, and then Tracy McGrady was supposed to be the savior. And then it was the same time where it's like 13, 14, all of a sudden it's kind of like, all right, I music, CDs, I got to start saving up for a car. Like that became more of a priority. And I think there wasn't the cool factor as a teenager. I think that's one thing that's interesting now is that sports cards from years 13 to 18 can be very cool, when you're in that high school dynamic and you want to be cool, you want to attract girls and have good friends and stuff like that. And at least when I was a kid, it seemed like the thing you did in middle school. And at least my friends ditched it. And I was like, I'm not going to lose my friends. So I went that route, but who knows what could have happened otherwise.
We all follow sort of, well, I won't say we all follow similar sort of trajectories in the hobby. We don't, but I think as you're a guy growing up, you go through those phases for sure that we all kind of go through in our teens and early 20s and that. So, Sean, I had COVID, no joke. Do your very best not to get it. Ongoing health issues. Hope you recover, man. But very slow. Might be long term now. Yeah, man. All the best to you. That's all I can say to that.
My girlfriend has COVID in Canada, and so she's been in the hospital. She's been in like dealing with it in the hospital, going on like medication and the lung machine. So some people do handle it really roughly. So
I've heard extremes. I've heard some
through.
extremes, and I've heard people that have had it and it really hasn't really slowed them down too much. So I guess there's just different levels. Ray-Ban says, I learned from watch, and I got to apologize. We're like half an hour behind on the comments, so that's just the way we're rolling tonight. Yeah, I learned from watching other content creator videos, and I implement it to my own sports cards experience. I like to learn about cards to do my own research on my own players. I think I do it well. Yeah, that's a great approach right there. Great approach. Yeah, Sean's break was at 20 years old. Brett says, some of my favorite YouTube channels reek of authenticity, be it from process of discovery angle or I've got knowledge to share. There's so much fun, positive content to watch. Yeah, there's a lot of fun, positive content. Our common friend, Dustin, the personal finance dad, a similar investment angle he takes. He likes to say he's about all collectibles. I bug him. He's 98% sports cards, which is fine. But, you know, he's just an uplifting guy, a happy guy, a positive guy. I love his vibe.
Well, I think it's kind of funny how you could have such a fun, childlike hobby that, you know, a lot of people get into as a kid and not have a fun, uplifting energy. You know, it's kind of just like, we're talking about sports cards in a time where there's pandemic and death and fear and social, injustices and all this stuff. And we can't have fun talking about sports cards. Like, sports are fun. Like what you said yesterday, sports cards make sports better, right? And if you can't have fun talking about that, then what can you have fun talking about?
It's what it's for. It's why that's what I'm in the hobby for, is for my, it keeps me, I have stresses in my life, family, job. These things come with stressors. The hobby is supposed to be a release. And unfortunately, some content that I consume causes me stress because I'm like, oh, you just want to go out there and like correct people, because sometimes I just feel like I know better. Call it what you will. Sometimes I feel that way. I'm just being honest.
Oh, I'm with you.
If you go express your opinion, and then, people can attack you. And I just kind of throw my arms up now and don't even say anything, because
that meme where it's like the guy doing this, that's it. Yeah. Or that little emoji where it's just like,
exactly. There's not much you can do sometimes. You put it out there. So I'll keep my content. Well, I won't say as a rule, but I'll keep it more to my show where you come to watch it. I'm not kind of coming into your thread and talking. So Sean says a certain amount of unfair criticism comes with the territory of being a semi-public figure. I think that goes without saying. A lot of content creators in the hobby are experiencing that. I've had some of it. You've had some of it, I'm sure. I think we all have. Yeah. Amish Dave Archer says, always buy what you want. Once you start letting others dictate your purchases, the fun is completely taken out of the hobby. If though, I do think, and I think you'll agree, Dave and Brad and everybody, some people want to get in the hobby, but they may not know what they like yet because they haven't seen enough. And so they're looking for some guidance, or maybe they're looking to get a few tips that will accelerate their learning curve. I think that's okay. But the genesis of what he's saying is so true, right? Just collect. It comes back to collect what you like. I know it's an over. It's actually been the name of my booth at the Sports Card Expo in Toronto for the past 10 years is collect what you like. So
I would say that's 100% accurate for the collector side. And if you're a collector, there's $2 cards that I think are phenomenal. Right. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. No one else sees it, but for $2, I'll take it. I think from the investment angle, that's where people go to 5 cards to buy now, 8 cards to buy, and they're looking for what's a good investment to later flip. And in that case, it's less about the fun and what you want. It's more about, well, what could I get rid of at a profit in the future? And so I think it depends on the lens at which you're viewing a few.
I agree with that completely. Sean says, completely agree. Is that a custom card, Brad? The one that you should be in a mag, not a flimsy top loader.
That's my face plant.
Yeah, you were bruised up there. Kickdown wants you to put it in a magnetic, Brad, which I agree. I agree with him. I think that it deserves a magnetic and a stand and all that. Sherry, welcome to the show, says nailed it. Great comment. And I know, guys, we're 30 minutes behind here. I'm going to try and get to the bottom of the comments here. Sean, I'm putting my money in cards that I know aren't the best investment right now because I just want the actual cards I want. Yeah, exactly. I care more about iconography, eye appeal than best investment. Yeah, again, I bought a collection the other day and I pulled out these 3 cards. I'm a hockey guy mostly, but I collect all sports. If you're new here, I pulled out these 3 cards. I don't know what they're worth, 50 cents to $2 each. but I pulled them out because I like them and I want them in my collection. So I'm going to keep them in my collection.
The irony is that when you collect based on the eye appeal and certain things, it could actually turn out to be a great investment accidentally because 10,000 other people realize it's a cool card as well. And that was the whole thing with this $8 Kobe Bryant, where I'm like, that's a really cool card. It looks like he has angel wings. And then I sold a PSA 9 for, I think I sold two of them. I think $250 and $275, right? So, but this was a card I paid $8 for, but it was only for, not because it was a good investment, it was because I really like this card.
So there's a bit of collector in you, Brad. There's some collector in you.
Hey,
I'm just going to show these cards just because I showed them. And I know people want to know. This is a Yager press proof from Donruss Studio. It's actually, there's 1,000 of these made. It says it right down there in the corner. One of 1,000 copies. So it's from 1997.
It's great hair.
This is a line-to-line Peter Forsberg, who's a Hall of Famer. Really cool foil card. It's I just drop it. It's short printed out of 4,000 copies. So what could it be worth? Literally a couple bucks, but I don't care. I think it's a cool card. And then a really nice Mario Lemieux coast-to-coast insert from Topps from 2002. So anyway, I just thought I'd show those quickly since I pulled them out.
While you have your hockey thing here, I showed you this personally, but this was my Steven Stamkos Xbox game autographed. And you see right there's the autograph, but I actually have a picture with him from that night on my Facebook up here as well. But that was my hockey input for the night because I'm a huge Lightning fan as well.
Man, I'm just seeing there. I'm so behind on comments. I'm not going to get to the bottom, so I'm just going to do a couple. I like this one. Hockey Hog says Brad has the charisma to deliver a TED Talk and receive a standing ovation.
As long as you guys are the audience,
that's a good compliment. That's a nice compliment. Sean says if you buy cards based on the recommendations of buying players because you're not familiar with the sport itself, I mean, yeah, but I hear you, and I'm with you on that to a degree. But I do say, some people are starting with, they know that the hobby's hot. They want to get involved. I would hope that because I've said this before myself, Sean, and I don't know if I might be alone in this, but I like cards more than I like the sports. I do. I admit that readily to the world. I'm a fan of hockey, basketball, baseball, football, not as much. But I prefer collecting the cards than I like cards more than I like sports. So when I say cards make sports better, I mean it because I can get in a card that I think is nice. That'll make me want to watch that player play, whatever sport it may be. And I think that cards can actually turn people into sports fans. Like why not?
Well, to piggyback off of that, I love, I started investing in some baseball cards and I'm excited to follow baseball this year. And I'm not a baseball fan at all. I'm not, but I was like, I kind of want to be more interested in the sport. And so I started looking up some players and doing some research. And so now football is the only sport that I would follow heavily without cards. Basketball, I'm more into now because of cards. Baseball, I've never really followed unless the Tampa Bay Rays were doing well, in which case I would still not watch the games, but I'd watch the box scores and highlights. And that's as far as I would go. And then in hockey, I would just follow the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it's made me more interested in other sports, but also other teams and the sport as a whole because of cards, with the exception of just the Tampa Bay teams in which I would follow regardless.
I understand it. He goes on to say, I would at least hope some familiarity with the sport and independence as a buyer comes with the territory if you're a participant. And I completely agree with that. I'm just going to be a little bit patient and say if someone comes in totally green without any sports knowledge, that they can develop those personal tastes in time as they're exposed to more sports and more cards.
And I think, I had a video on, some of my biggest recommendations when starting. And the first one was just absorb information for 3 weeks, all different sources. Don't spend your money because it's very easy just to buy everything and then realize, okay, crap, I learned all this stuff, but I just went off of this suggestion, this. And I said, take your time, spend 3 weeks just absorbing different content creators, different forums, all this stuff until you get familiar, and then go ahead and make some purchases, whether it's in the breaks or it's singles or whatever else. But I think that lesson of becoming an independent person and becoming familiar with sports and players, hopefully it comes over time, just because if it's not coming right off the bat, then you're probably going to have a bad experience sooner or later, and then eventually have to come up with that conclusion of, okay, I can't take everything on face value. I've got to do a bit of deep diving and see the thought process behind it, look a bit deeper, do some research here or there. So especially the newer ones, like the kids or the teenagers or whoever that's just young and is like, this person says buy and then I bought. That's where I feel like it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I got a buddy who is a big sports fan, but never followed football. But a bunch of his friends, not me, were involved in fantasy football, and he wanted to get involved. He wanted to get involved in the game of fantasy football, but knew nothing. Like, didn't know players. Of course, he knew Tom Brady, and a few others, but he didn't know the sport. Didn't have a team. Well, now, because of his interest in fantasy football, for both the gamification, the gaming aspect, and the social aspect, he now knows every player in the NFL, and he loves it. So it's an example where the game or the hobby can bring you into the sport. Brad, I'm gonna run through some comments now, kind of just quick. So there's a bunch I want to address and kind of get through here. And I love the conversation, but I'm literally half an hour behind here. So, but I want to bring some of these up. Ray-Ban, I feel some content creators are just trying to get clicks and views for the YouTube algorithm. So they use clickbait and say, hey, buy this player. I agree with that. But I will say we all want the clicks. I mean, we're putting out the content. We want that positive feedback. We want that affirmation that what we're doing is worthwhile. Joe says the added fuel of something feeling fulfilling is particularly important at this time in the hobby. Thank you, Brad, for your awesome energy and intentionality. It's refreshing and much needed. I'm with you on that. Sean, it's not someone else's responsibility to make good investment decisions for you. You got to be more sophisticated than just a Jim Cramer watcher collector. Hard to disagree with that, but again, I'm a bit more forgiving, I think, but that's okay. I've noticed breakers who don't even know or like the sport they're breaking. That's been around for a long time. They're just opening product for sure, and they can't say the players' names. Happens all the time. This Brad guy is good people, no doubt. Opening 84 O-Pee-Chee Hockey and butchering Steve Yzerman's name when you get their rookie card. Yeah, I like this. Yzerman. Yeah, it's
I became a huge fan of Steve Yzerman when he came to the Lightning and completely assembled this championship team. So props to Steve.
Yeah, for sure. Ray-Ban says, I feel you, mate, crossing the road and don't trust drivers. That's from a while ago. Aviva Wise says, there was one content creator who said to buy someone and then bragged about making profit on the same guy in the next video. Yeah, I mean, you got to watch people. You got to watch them for sure. No Vinyl is a great investment now. I feel Brad is a great addition to the hobby. Why? Because he talks about his mistakes, like his PSA order. Honesty is important. Transparency is important. Completely agree. You don't just, I'll leave it at that. I completely agree with that. Slobs is surprised there's not more people in here. Oh, we got 80 people. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Brad probably drank a lot of beer with that cake. So Brad
would have digested it better if I did, to be honest.
Look at this one. I like this comment. So Brad has his cake and eats it too.
It's an analogy for life, guys. A metaphor.
Pretty funny. Jordan, welcome to the show, says, what is one sports card set or design you love that has little value, respect in the hobby? Jordan always asks these tough questions. Come up, you go.
Okay, so there's a video. Okay, I guess I'll break it here. There's a video that I'm doing where I asked all my audience in a post to answer what is the best looking card or set and what is the worst looking. And so I polled all of this. I looked at all this, and a lot of the answers came back. There was like 55 Bowman baseball, and then I think 2020 gold label. But there's some themes here because they said those answers as well as Flair Showcase. And when you look at the design of a lot of those sets, there is a portrait picture, like a headshot, a big headshot in the back with an action pose in the front. And I noticed this pattern of like, wow, a lot of people are naming sets that they like having this Flair Showcase style. And Flair Showcase is one of my favorite. It looks classy. It has the fancy script writing. It looks expensive. And that was my takeaways, that I would love for Flair Showcase to be reproduced by Panini or like, they come out with their version where they really nail that Flair Showcase look. But the older Flair Showcase, I don't know if you feel like it's underrated, overrated, anything like that. I just don't hear about it now because there's so much modern stuff that kind of drowns out that 90s to early 2000s.
The hardcore 90s collectors love it. It's a big deal. You can see some high grade of the major players selling for huge dollars. You know, the MJs and that get really good money from the 90s. For me, and I'm just going to pick Synergy. I know a lot of people, Synergy hockey, a lot of people hate the product. I don't think it has great break value, but I've never really broken it. I've a couple boxes maybe, but I just think the singles are, and not the inserts in that product. I'm not crazy about those, but I really love the base cards. They're cardboard die cut on an acetate backing, and I just think they look phenomenal. Hockey Guy says the fingers on the fronts of cards drives me nuts watching breakers. Amazing how little respect some of them have for customers' cards. Yes. John says 6 away from 2000. Let's get to it by the end of the show.
You might be there now.
Hey?
You might be there.
No, still at 6 away. Still at 6 away, according to my my dashboard.
Well, you scared away your high school buddies, so now like a couple people away, those people left.
I might have lost a few and gained a few along the way. Consolidate into cards you actually like, regardless of player. If you're going to consolidate into cards you like. That goes without saying. Slob says this is a great show, actually. What do you mean, actually, Slobs? What do you mean, actually? I appreciate it, though. The breakers also slamming cards into penny sleeves and top loaders. Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to put a card into a penny sleeve because too many people don't know how to do it. And it's not going to be this thing. I'm not talking about this trick. Sorry, I'm not talking about that trick. You take the sleeve, you open it up, you do a flicking motion, and you flick the corner, and now the corner is open. You see, and then you take a card. I don't have a card that's not in a hole. Oh, I do. You take a card, and you open it up a little. You put it there, and now look. You can do this 100 times. You're not going to damage the corner, and then you just slide it in. That's how you put a card into a sleeve. Flick.
You know what's great about that is I've never seen that before. And that's something so simple and probably well known from collectors like yourself for so many years. And I've never seen that. So now I'm like, man, what a great intro YouTube video where it's like, hey, this helps everyone. And it's so simple, but I've never seen that. So that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you do the intro video before I do, just give me credit in it.
Yeah. I'm going to get so many views on that. I appreciate it, Jeremy. It's going to go super viral.
All right. What else we got here? Because I want to get through the comments. There's some good ones in here. Let's see. My favorite is them slamming them down into a stick with a finger on top where the fingernail is clearly on. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Terrible. Anyone else think this hobby and how accessible it is to look at cards will cause many divorces? It's easy to spend too much time on this hobby. Guaranteed. I got to say guaranteed. People like their cards more than they like their wives in a lot of cases.
Well, like one of my concerns is like from the financial side was, okay, if you are having fun and you're bringing positive energy to your relationship because of how much fun you're having in the hobby, I think that could help. However, if you're neglecting your spouse and you're spending all the money that you've saved together on breaks and not doing it sustainably, then yeah, it's going to lead to divorce. But it's funny because my girlfriend, she's an investor. She invests in Germany and she has clients there. So we can talk a lot and actually get along because she's interested from that angle. But I'd be curious as to how other wives or girlfriends, or if it's females, how their husbands respond if they're not interested. Is it becoming a distraction or just something that's driving them away from each other? Or is it something where you can bring the fun you're having from the hobby to the relationship? So it's like, hey, you're always in a better mood. Well, that's because I have my outlet. I have my escape. I'm having fun. And if you can make a couple $100 and then take your wife or your husband out on a date, I'm like, dude, that's great. Isn't that perfect?
Do it with car. Yeah, I went today. I have a local ad and I get random messages. So today I got a random message. The guy's like, all my ad says pretty much is buying Gretzky rookies. I got a call today from a guy locally, got a Gretzky. He sent me the pictures. I'm like, you know what? It's in bad shape. Probably going to be a PSA 1. Hopefully it's a 1, not an authentic. And but I went and looked at it. I bought the card from him. And I said, as I was leaving, I said to my wife, and we have 2 young kids, I said, I kind of got to go because I'm going to buy the card. I'm going to be able to make money on it. So, we're having a fridge. I just spent $700 to not even repair my fridge, but to diagnose the damn thing. I'm like, honey, I got to pay for that fridge. So, you know,
$700 to diagnose a fridge. What kind of fridge? What kind of futuristic fridge do you have?
I had one guy come in to diagnose it, $100, said you have a refrigerant leak. Then I called the guy who was going to fix it. Well, they come out, they were $550 to put in a special gas to find out where the leak was coming from. And the part to do it was expensive. And then they're going to come back again, and it'll be another just labor to do the repair itself. It's going to cost me like $800-900 to repair my fridge. It's an Electrolux. I don't know. It's a big ass fridge. It's just a fridge, no freezer. Anyway, the point being that sometimes you can make some money in the hobby and apply those profits to your regular life expenses. And just like you can use the money to take your wife out for a nice dinner, or you can use it to fix your fridge or get new tires for your car, whatever it may be that you need at that time.
Yeah, I think, because I was going to do a video on this. I think it's a great discussion, because the longer people are in the hobby, the more you're just the more that this question comes about, where it's like, either my relationship's getting better because I'm doing it right and I'm including my partner, and it's sustaining itself and I'm bringing positive energy to the relationship, or it's doing the opposite. So to me, it always comes down to, are you more fulfilled and happier when you're with this person because of the hobby or not? And if you are bringing more energy and vibrance and all the good stuff, and you're able to fulfill your everything from your job and being a father or a wife or whatever it is as well, then I think it should be a perk, versus if it's like, well, I'm neglecting work, I'm neglecting the kids, my bank account or my savings has gone down because I keep trying to enter a break, where I keep buying cards for myself that it should have been for our vacation or for the kids' college. That's the stuff that's dangerous. And that's why I'm like, guys, this is very easy just to rack up on our credit cards, but that's not solving anything, right? That's very unsustainable. How can we do this a bit more sustainable, so it's not this high turnover rate in the hobby, but instead it's people joining, staying, having more fun, and it's actually growing at a good, healthy rate? Yeah,
it depends what you're buying. If you're putting your money into breaks, you're in essence, you're gambling. But if you're putting your money into, I'll call them assets, like good rookie cards or good cards of good players, you can always then sell those cards and get your money out of them, hopefully, versus you can't sell your break, the fruits of the break, because you just spent $100 to get $20 worth of product, unless you got really lucky. I'm going to rip through some more of these kind of quickly here. Some of them. There was a question. Sean Robb, welcome, says, is the sports card scene different in LA compared to Tampa? Can you do that in 20 seconds, Brad?
It's well, we have a couple new sports card shops, including Cards and Coffee, which is the Steve Aoki and DJ Ski owned one. So it's a lot trendier here. I mean, there's one on Melrose as well. So I would say way hipper, cooler. Tampa, it was the ones I went to were a lot more traditional in terms of cards.
Fair. Got sports cards. What do you think of NBA Top Shot? I like it. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. It's NBA licensed, which is a humongous differentiator to me. So to me, that's important. I like it. I think it's neat. I'm open to it, but I'm not about to throw $25,000 at a Luka moment at this point in time, because I just don't know enough about it. Brad, you got thoughts on Top Shot?
Yeah, I'm open to it, but I want a year under its belt to see how many people are in now, because it's just new. It's novelty. It's, hey, I can get in at a low price and sell when there's a lot of media coverage around it. And how many people are like, no, this is legit. So in a year's time, I'd probably be more interested in going in myself. But right now, I compare it a bit to soccer cards back in July, August, where people were getting in because there was money to be made. And I don't know what percentage of people are legit on it and how many people are just in for the quick flip so that they pass on the hot potato to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. Well said. Tony says, just wondering if there are people in Canada who have an O-Pee-Chee Gretzky rookie case. Tony, I don't know what you mean by rookie case, but I know that a lot of people.
With autocorrect, was it like maybe you typed on a phone? Maybe it was supposed to say card.
Oh, could be. Well, yeah, lots of us up in Canada have a Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie card. I bought one today, as I just said. But again, this message is 26 minutes old, so maybe missed that. Dennis, positivity, 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 and fun is what this is all supposed to be about. Thank you. Yeah, Sean says, I do think there is something comforting, straightforward, and approachable about sports cards. Yeah, they're simple. They're simple, and they're something we remember from when we were kids, most of us at least. Oscar Dad, does Brad have any thoughts or interest in Top Shot? We talked about it. Thank you. Hockey Guy says, agree with Dave Archer. People now care more what their card is worth than what or who it is. Money, money, money. Hobby's about cards, not money. Hobby's about what it's about for you. We all have free will. We're all allowed in the hobby, unless you're a fraudster, and we're all allowed, I believe, to be in it for whatever reason we want. But, you know, again, all that said, my hope is that the people that are investing in cards grow or already do love the cards themselves. That's what I say about that. Sean Johnson remembers that Don Russiager. Haven't seen in like 23 years. Yep, mullet card. That Bryant is great. Love them. Jeremy and Brad, the summer and winter Olympics are both scheduled next 13 months. What are your thoughts about Olympic cards as potential investments? Not.
I've been buying some Olympic cards, but not expensive ones. And it's one of those like hit or miss things to me. But I think my natural lens is also living here in LA. I'm like, media coverage. One Gary V tweet is enough to move the market in some direction. So I'm always wondering about that because there is so much media coverage from these different sources. I'm like, Olympics are going to be hyped like hell because it always is. Every 4 years, it's Olympics. Everyone goes crazy. And so I can't imagine they won't be affected at all. But I also know that the window is short, right? It's kind of like one of those things where you got maybe, the 3 weeks of hype before the Olympics and maybe a week into the Olympics where you can sell. So the ones I bought are PSA 9s of those 1992 Impel US Dream Team cards, but I love them for myself too. I'm like, I wish I had one here. I'd have to run and get it, but it's like the whole Dream Team there with Jordan and Malone. And I'm like, this was my first memory of NBA basketball when I was 6, was watching the Dream Team. So I love that kind of stuff.
You do love cards. My take on, I said no pretty quickly there, but my take is this. You said it's a short window. It is. The problem with the Olympics as far as collectability goes is that they don't come around often enough. You're going to have an athlete who's hot for the leading up to the Olympics based on their expected gold medal win count or medals wins that they'll earn. But then you're 4 years away from them being relevant again. We already see between basketball seasons how quickly cards can go up and down. In the offseason, they come down, they go up as we go back into the season. You now have 3.5 years for no one to care about them, except for the true standouts, the Mike Phelps of the world. I'm all over I have a Phelps card on my display behind me. That to me is worthwhile because he'll never be forgotten. But like I just saw someone say here, like Hockey Guy says, most of them are a flash in the pans. That's true. Most of them are a flash in the pan because they're just, again, they're only relevant for 6 months out of every 4 years. And how many? It's not like they can play 20 seasons or play in 20 Olympics. They can play in 1/4 of 20 Olympics.
Right. And well, the interesting thing for me is that I was looking up LeBron James's first USA basketball card and his first Prism USA, and I was looking at the prices there, and he has a 2004 Fleer USA basketball, and I think that was the year they got the bronze, which was horrible, but it's still a second-year card of LeBron in the USA jersey. So that's the kind of stuff that intrigues me because I'm like, well, it's a second-year LeBron card. He looks super young. It's $22, right? It's not like, holy crap, this is thousands of bucks. It's $22. I was buying them raw. And for me, I'm like, well, no matter what, it's a second-year LeBron. He looks young. And the one thing I loved about USA Jordan cards was that was the one time that Michael Jordan played for my team. So I think that's the one powerful thing I said is like, I got the best players of the world that I usually hate, and I'm mad at them when they beat my Orlando Magic. They're actually playing for my team in this one instance. So I think maybe I'm the minority there, but I thought that was really cool to see Jordan not against me, Yeah,
and I'm thinking more in terms of non-professional athletes in the Olympics versus professionals in the Olympics. If we're talking about Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods playing golf,
the guy that throws the giant stone from his neck and spins out, I have no idea about that. But yeah, if it's not Lance Armstrong who kind of like ruined himself, but then Michael Phelps, it's like I have no idea who these people are anyway.
Yeah. So God Sports says more. I agree. Sorry, more cards than sports. I agree. Shout out to Braden Point for you from Kickdown. Also, Braden Point's from where I live in Calgary here. Nice. Jordan says true, but Michael Phelps, as I just said, yeah, Michael Phelps is an exception for me, Jordan, for sure. Now name other swimmers that won gold with Phelps or the gymnast that won with Biles. Exactly.
Well, you got that one swimmer. You got the one swimmer that just got in trouble for like lying. I forgot his name, but that was about it. That's all I remember besides him.
Sean says, gotta say, I'm much more sports over cards. I don't know if a Red Kelly card is going to have an aura to me if I wasn't fascinated in what he represented to the sport in the 50s. So, you know, I'm with you there, Sean. It's what happened to me is that I'm a sports fan for my teams. I love watching my teams play. I'll watch them, but I find even when I'm at a hockey game, if I'm out watching the Calgary Flames play here locally, if there's a card on eBay that's ending during that game, I don't care if it's overtime and we're on the power play. I've got my eyes on my phone ready to snipe that auction in the last 2 seconds, watching it. That is, you know, I'm like, I don't want them to score while I'm doing it. I want them to wait for me. But in the event they can't wait for me to score that winning goal, my eyes are probably going to be on the phone so that I can buy that card. That's kind of what I mean when I say I like the cards more than the sports, because the cards are with me all the time. Sports are for the season itself. But anyway, just an interesting comment. But it also tells me, you know, like, here's the thing with Sean's comment too about Red Kelly and Brad. Red Kelly is a Hall of Fame defenseman. He was kind of like sorry, I'm thinking about Doug Harvey. Never mind. But Red Kelly's also a great Hall of Famer. But we never saw him play. None of us here probably, well, some people probably maybe saw him play, but we didn't see him play. So we can still kind of relate to him through the card or feel like we have a stake in the game through the card, I think. I'm going to keep on going here because I want to catch up. Jordan says they'd likely have value in the short term, but not long term unless they end up in Phelps territory. I agree. Big unit on Jagger card. His mullet was nicely centered with a smooth surface and crisp edges. PSA 10 for sure. Hockey guy, Jordan says, hence why I mentioned Phelps and Biles only. The others are not legendary or remembered, and that's okay for sure. The card collector, welcome, says, for me, I barely watch sports before cards. Sure, I sometimes watch the Phillies or Eagles with my grandfather, but other than that, nothing. Once I took out my dad's old cards and started watching. Yes, right? Cards make sports better, and they make them more interesting. Go ahead, Brad.
And I wonder if the card collector is now a bit closer to his dad, right? Like, I think to myself, my dad wasn't into sports cards at all, but we're not very close. Like, we talk, but we don't have long conversations. But I wonder, like, man, what if my dad was really into the teams and then into cards? Like, would our dynamic be different? And I think that's the magic of the generational, the hobby, where it's so generational, it can be passed down.
For sure. Now I lost my spot.
Well, no, we start at the top. Just start over.
I found it. It's way up there, man. We're so behind. And, you know, part of After Hours is interacting with the audience, having our conversation, keeping it casual. I'll run through a few more here. Corey Carr says, sorry I'm late. Stoked you guys could get together on the same show. And by the way, this is the second night we've done this. Last night was on Brad's channel. Hey, Brad, did you say you were a Bill Cates financial coach?
I don't know if that's supposed to be Bill Gates. I don't know who Bill Cates is, but Dave Ramsey. So if you look up Dave Ramsey, he's like the anti-debt, grind it out, save money, very conservative, but very practical. So yeah, check that Dave Ramsey if you haven't heard of him.
Awesome. Okay, Jordan says, assuming you don't want to pay PSA 10 Prism Cup prices, would you turn to PSA 8, 9, or PSA 10 of a lesser set for? I always go for the card, Jordan, over the grade. I don't care. I go for the card I like in the best grade that I can get. Pretty simple as that. Simple as that for me. Yeah, I agree. Doesn't have great break value. Jeremy just described 99% of products. I think he's talking about break value there. Yes, totally new to me. Never seen that before. But yeah, great tip. That's opening up the sleeves. Jeremy needs to patent that. I don't know how you patent the finger flick.
No, it's the Jeremy Open or the Jeremy Slip or it's just the name needs to be like, oh, can you do the Jeremy Slip or something like that where Jeremy
Sports Cards Live, the flick. I like that, the flick for sure.
Okay, there you go.
Ryan, never seen the corner penny sleeve flick. The more Tiger. Now I've been cutting corners like a chump. Yeah, just use your finger. Yeah, it's called the flick now. If it didn't have a name before. Kickdown says the meme of the guy holding his spouse's hand while looking at a box of Prism is real, no doubt. Slob says, is there a difference between negativity and constructive criticism? 100% there's a difference there, Slob. You know that, though. Slob knows that. Big Daddy says, my cards are my escape from the pressure of life. I always throw the wife a couple extra bucks every month towards something she likes, and she's good with it. Like everything, moderation and balance. That's good advice. Canadian fridges suck. It's an Electrolux. They're an American company. Costa Rica card collector. Great to have you. Hopefully you're still here. That was 16 minutes ago. Foul five ball. Finally see someone else put cards in penny sleeve. Correct. I've been doing that for years. An owner of an LCS taught me when I was young. I'll tell you who taught me that. This goes back 10 years ago. I'm set up at the Summit Show in Edmonton, and it was actually oh my gosh, if he's watching, he'll kill me because his name is slipping my mind right now, so I can't even tell you who it was. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. But it was a guy who works for Beckett Grading. He was the guy that runs the New York office. Was there taking submissions, and he sees me putting cards. He's like, "Don't you flick your corners?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "This is why cards often don't get 9-5 on corners because people put them in the sleeves wrong." And it was Charlie from Beckett who taught me this. And I've been doing it ever since. Electrolux is usually a solid brand. Yeah, unless you get the refrigerant leak version, which I have. You guys had the washing machine. What a pain in the ass it was. Brakes are 100% gambling. I agree with that. I'll say 98%, but yeah, pretty much. Foul Fireball lives 60 miles north of LA. No card shops in the county. That's too bad. But Burbank is worth the drive, says Kickdown, which apparently they're like one of the best shops in the world. Amara, welcome, says, what do you think about the Lemieux rookie leaders card? Same set as the rookie. I think it's a great alternative. I think it's a great alternative too. I love his second year card as well, Amara, from 86 OPG. But yeah, that league leaders card is kind of one that might be underappreciated right now and could have some room as far as future value increases. Don't take that as investment advice. I'm just saying that's what I think. That's what I think could happen. Brett says, I know far more people who enjoy the hobby and have positive things to bring to it in my world. I do my best to block out the noise. It provides no value. Brett, I wish I was as strong as you to block out the noise, but sometimes I get sucked in and I just gotta control. I'm doing better now. I'm doing better to stay outside of some online keyboard warrior conflict. Go ahead.
It's a learned skill. And I think part of it just becomes knowing that it's not a battle you're ever going to win. It's just going to bring you down. Like you can't bring other people up when they're determined to bring that energy. So it's like, all right, I just got to leave and focus on maintaining my own optimism before I get drawn down to that.
Yeah, it's for your own mental health. Just stay away from it sometimes, right? For sure. Corey Carr, how some of the junk wax cards are turning to chase because we're familiar with the Lindros rookie, the Bure. I mean, those cards were the Zions of the day in hockey, that's for sure. The Gretzky 1980 OPG second team All-Star card, less iconic than the rookie, but arguably has the highest eye appeal of any very early. Yeah, arguably for sure. I would say that as well. I like his 1981 in action card. I think it is pretty cool looking too. And they are, some of that stuff is exploding in value as I've seen, if that's what you're talking about. Sean Rayban says, I stopped buying into breaks for money only to get nothing or very low price cards, especially if you spend over 100 and only hit $5. That's why I don't like breaks. But I'm so glad breaks happen because without breaks, those awesome cards that do come out of the odd break wouldn't make it to the secondary market for guys like me and a bunch of us out here being able to go buy. Brett says, I also do my best to bring positivity to the hobby. Sure, there are things that frustrate me, but I don't dwell on it and let it fuel my conversation. That's a good approach for sure. Meant to say Gretzky rookie card cases in Canada. I still don't know what you mean by rookie card cases. I don't know what that means. Doesn't think IOC licenses cards anyway. That's what Carvin, I think it was Carvin is mentioned on the show that Carvin, who's been in the hobby for a long time, worked for Upper Deck and Panini, said that they don't. Whether it was him or somebody else, could have been somebody else. I've had so many guests on here that have industry knowledge. Sean thinks 90s junk wax PSA 10s just aren't that appealing compared to PSA 8. I think Tony means unopened. Unopened cases of product. I don't know anyone that has an unopened case of O-Pee-Chee hockey? No, I do not know at all. See, I wouldn't have called it the Gretzky case. I would have called it the 79-80 case, but that's why I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, it's like an empty slab where it's just
I wasn't sure, like
PSA 9, but the card's missing. I was like
a stamp. Gretzky rookie is what I was thinking he meant.
Right here.
Didn't mean that. Now I get it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Costa Rica, good Olympic performance will add value. Yeah, for a young player that also has a professional career and other cards in the hobby, that's for sure. Investors are awesome for the hobby, cheap stuff down the road. Yeah, if you can tell the future, Slob, I want to buy the books you're reading for sure, because I don't know. I'm not on board with that completely, but time will tell. Time will tell. Okay, what else do you want to talk about? We're actually towards the bottom of the. Oh no, hold on. There's a couple more here I want to quickly bring up, Brad, and then hold that thought though. Okay, hold that thought.
I remember.
Jordan says, "How many one of ones do you own? Can you share the story behind them?" Oh man, I mean,
you have them all. I don't have one of one except for the one that this guy drew me
the custom
a week ago.
The custom. I mean, I've got several one of ones. I mean, I can't even think of them all, but and the stories are very variable from buying them locally to buying them at card shows to buying them on eBay to getting into bidding wars, all sorts of things. Steve says, I watch games that are not of my favorite team and root for teams based on cards I have of the players, right? Similar to fantasy sports.
It's like fantasy. We're now emotionally tied, sometimes financially tied, which is also emotionally tied to a player or a team or even a sport that we wouldn't have been involved in prior. Kind of like, also like, I guess if you gamble on a game, it's like, hey, I want to have fun with this game, and my team is out of the playoffs. They've really sucked. Well, I still want to have fun. How can I do that?
Yeah. Sean says, I did pick up from Jeremy that they sometimes just bid way above what anyone is likely to bid to make sure they get the card. But that's obviously dangerous if someone else is doing that too. That's happened to me twice. I didn't win the card either time that comes to mind, where I call it Astro bidding. Like I make an astronomical bid on a card because I just want to make sure I get it. A card that was a $250 that I wanted to win for like $400. I put in a bid of $1,111.11. At 2 seconds left, was automatically outbid. Someone else paid $25 more than I bid. And that person must have hated me at that moment in time, because I just drove up their price from 200 something to $1,136.
Holy crap, man.
I did it last week too on this Ken Griffey Jr. card. I wanted the card badly. I bid $800 when it was sitting at like 2 something, hoping to win it for well under 500. Auto outbid. Someone else paid $810 for the card, and they were cursing me. No shilling going on. No funny business. Legit. I would have paid $800 if that's what I bought it for. I would have paid the money. I would have been pissed, but I would have paid it. So I'm just, not every auction that looks like there might be funny business going on is actually funny business. There are people out there willing to pay for cards. I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't win either of those times I just talked about. Jordan wants to know if you're planning on going to the National this year, Brad.
Yeah, that's definitely the plan. I hope it happens in Chicago. And because the one thing that's really missing from everything that has been here in the hobby is face-to-face. And here in California, a lot of the things are still closed down. So I went to the gym for the first time yesterday because the Gold's Gym moved everything outdoors. So it's that locked down where we can't be indoors for pretty much anything. So that'll be a great break from all this strict guidelines.
For sure. Sean says, I did do the bid way above to make sure you get the card trick since Jeremy floated it, and I have sort of broke even on getting deals and overpaying, mostly for longer term investment for me though. Hey man, you do what you got to do to win cards sometimes. Ostad, sorry Jeremy, if you don't mind, can I see the penny sleeve flick again? Missed it the first time around. You sure can. See it. I'll do the other side of it.
I should just do a video on this where I feature you in there, where I'm like, let me show you, and then it's like a video clip of you doing it, then head on over to Jeremy's channel. And if you have any more things like this that's not well known, this is phenomenal stuff.
We'll talk. So you open it up like this, you put your finger and you just do a flicking motion at the seam and just open up the seam. And now the seam, if you look, it's open. It's open at the top now, right? Like just like half an inch, so that when you actually put the card in, you open up like you normally would, you put it in, but now you don't have to worry about catching a corner. You can just I don't know if you can see it really clearly, but see, you're just riding it through there over and over again. It's not touching anything. It's super smooth. So that's the trick.
Couldn't they just make penny sleeves like that with one side slit?
Open a bit.
Yeah.
There have been products out there that have had sort of shortcuts in that I've seen, but
okay,
nothing beats the flick for now until someone else does it. Sean loves the 81 in action Gretzky. That's awesome. I actually think it's one of the most handsome hockey cards ever. I'm with you on that. Ignoring issues also creates mental health problems. Ignoring issues does, but ignoring online battles between people or
petty shit,
it's like that doesn't cause mental problems, I don't think. Favorite one of my collection, probably be one of my Dale Howard Chuck property ofs. I think I have like all 3 that were ever made. It's probably one of those ones, I would have to say. Costa Rica, some really awesome content, you guys. Yes, I love to target a player on a team I love. Sometimes I keep the cards in the end as opposed to selling it. Me love to snipe on eBay. It is so fun. I'm a sniper, exclusively a sniper. That's when I place my bids on almost all the time.
I know Thomas, dude, he's a great artist. He's working on custom artwork, like cards, like actually designing cards. So I'm going to try and feature him in the upcoming live stream. But there's a big thing down there. You see like a giant Miller High Life logo that Thomas created with it saying Select in there, because if you look at the first year of Select in NBA 2012 2013, it reminds me of Miller High Life, with especially on like a red player like a Chicago.
Is this Thomas Costa Rica?
Thomas, yeah, this is the Thomas.
Welcome to the show, Thomas. Glad to have you.
The final version printed out, and I'll show you guys in another live stream. But he's using his artistic abilities to offer something to collectors and investors that want to have some sort of really cool design. And I think there's a lot of really creative ways to offer different talents in this hobby, which is exciting.
And I'm seeing a lot of people actually take paint to cards and add different materials. Card Killer on Instagram does a really nice job, as do there's this Currency Project. These couple guys have an account that they turn some rather bland cards into beautiful pieces of art. It's kind of cool. It kind of ties into the Project 2020 thing with the artistic flair on the cards. I like this. Sorry, not that. Well, okay. Yeah, I have a lot of Astro bids going out on cards I want. Some of them are plain silly, and I share what they are with some of my friends. It's fun to share sometimes, especially when you Astro bid, but someone else like excessively Astro bid you, and and you just cost them a ton of money.
You thought you Astro bidded until you saw what they bid.
Thought I did, but I didn't, and my goal isn't to cost people money. My goal is to win the card. I love how we say win the card. Win the right to buy the card.
Yeah. No, that's the best thing eBay has for him, is that marketing term. Congratulations, you won. It's like, no, you agreed to pay more for this card than anyone else in the world. Right. You committed to pay more. That's not winning. It's not a raffle.
No. It's like going into the grocery store, buying a liter of milk, taking it to the cashier, and she says, "Congratulations, you won a liter of milk." No, I didn't. I'm choosing to buy it with my hard-earned money.
It's like the Nigerian princes, the emails. You won $10 million. We just need you to send over $6,000 at a Western Union. It's like, you didn't win a thing. It's a great marketing word, though.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a good question from Jordan. How have your buying, selling strategies changed over the past few months? I'm going to go first because mine will be quicker than yours. My strategy hasn't changed over the past few months. I'm looking for cards that are I think are undervalued based on where I think they can go to, because that's what interests me right now. But nothing else has changed. I'm still buying cards I want, even if the prices have gone a bit higher on some. But I also collect a lot of cards that aren't worth much that I collect because I collect them. I collect the sets. And so really not much has changed for me at all. How about you, Brad?
A lot has changed because, I've only been back in since February. So there's been a lot of learning in the last 10, 11 months. And so at first, I was coming in with a lot of the mentality I had when I was 12 years old, which is $20 for a card is a lot. You know, when I'm 12 years old, that's all my allowance. And so I was buying a lot of raw cards. I was sending them to ComC. I was saving some to be graded. And I was fortunate enough to find Beckett Marketplace months ago when there were Kobe Bryant finest cards for $4 and Kobe Bryant chromes for $4. And I was like, okay, you know, the mindset was it can't really go down from here. So I'm getting hundreds of raw cards, sending the ones that aren't in grade worthy condition to ComC, and then sending the rest to PSA. And then now I've accepted the fact that there's some real money in it. There's a real legitimacy. $1,000 is not that much for a card. It's more just my limiting belief that $1,000 is like, holy crap, are you kidding me? Well, now it's like, hold on a second. If a Mickey Mantle sells for 5.2 million, well, maybe that, you know, other cards are worth 1,000 or 2,000. So now I've stepped up to graded cards, but I love watching the trends. I love studying human behavior because you know, if I only followed the player, I'm putting too much in their court. Like, I don't know how a rookie's going to pan out. You know, even a star player, they could break their leg tomorrow. Like it happened to Dak Prescott. It happens to certain athletes. So I like to say, all right, well, I know the players I really like. I have the reasoning behind why I think they should go up on paper, at least in the next 4 to 6 months. However, I also want to know what's the best time to get in. And I'm taking a lot more of a seasonal approach. And that's also why I got into baseball cards back in November, because I was like, man, basketball is just on fire. Football, it's the season's going on. So there's a lot of up and some down, but the season's most of the way over. And so it's a lot more of like I compare it to like a Halloween costume store. You buy low through, you know, in the off months, and then, you know, in October is the month that it's going to really peak. And so taking that yearly approach is something that I've really started to adopt.
Yeah, really understanding the cycles is important, and a lot of people have learned a lot because we had a couple of basketball seasons close together. So people are starting. A couple of things I did think of that I have changed. I was buying some Pokemon cards in the middle of 2020. I'm not buying Pokemon cards anymore. I found that I'm just not interested in them. I think they're cool if you have. I don't have the nostalgic connection to them. So I was literally buying them out of FOMO, which I readily admit I suffer from. And I was buying them because I wanted to find them cool. I thought they're, you know, I like art. I like cool characters. But at the end of the day, I don't find myself ever pulling them out and looking at them with adoration as I do for my sports cards. So that's one thing. The other thing that has changed a little bit is that I find, when I mentioned earlier that I'm looking for cards that I think have potential to grow in value, it's not that I'm just looking for cards that are going to grow in value. I'm looking for cards that I like, that I think are undervalued relative to the rest of the market right now. And I'm finding that in some 90s baseball, that cards.
Jeters and Griffey's, I was buying those, especially Griffey, because of the video game.
Griffey's who I'm buying, Brad. I didn't want to say it, but Griffey's who I'm buying. I'm all for transparency, but I don't want to run the cost on myself either.
Well, what's funny is that I don't watch baseball, but I remember one of my favorite video games as a kid was Ken Griffey Baseball on Nintendo 64. And so this was when I was probably 12 or 13. And this was a great game. And that iconic home run swing of Ken Griffey Jr. was on the cover. And if you played with him in the game, you just smash home runs all the time because he had the biggest circumference of a batting, circle. It's like a beach ball. You just hover it over the little baseball there, and boom, 450 yard home run. But I think the part of it with the Pokemon is that Ken Griffey cards remind me of playing that video game, even though I didn't care about the Seattle Mariners or the Reds or anything like that. It was, you remind me of the fun I had playing the video game with you on the cover and you as the player. And I have a whole thing of Pokemon cards back there, but they're all from when I was 12 and I never got rid of them. So my parents actually sent it to me, like 180 foils, 180 foil cards. I was like, just went to town as a kid, and now they're all just sitting here.
I need that's nostalgia. When you talk about playing the Griffey, the baseball game, I forget what game you were playing, but when you talk about playing it on Sega or Nintendo or whatever, that is nostalgia for you. And that's what was missing for me with Pokemon when I bought some Pokemon. Now the cards I bought went up in value. I'm very happy with them from an investment perspective, but I'm just waiting now to move. I want to sell them because I do and I don't. Like I do believe there's going to be long-term value in them, but I just don't love them, and that's I feel weird about it.
Yeah, well, it's like the same reason I was like NBA Top Shot could be a great investment. It turned out it's been a great one if you got in. I didn't get in, but there was zero emotion tied to it, and some of the players, like like certain cards I bought on Beckett, like Pau Gasol. And Pau Gasol, I don't know if you know him as a player. I hated him. He was a good player, but nothing spectacular. But he flopped, and I hated watching him because he'd fly to the ground and be like, ah. And I can't stand it. But I remember finding his cards on Beckett for like $3, and they're chrome rookie cards. And I was like, the second I get this is going straight to Comp C. But it was the same thing where there was no insurance policy of enjoying the card. It was get out of my sight. Please sell so I could put this money into something that I actually care about.
Yeah. I hear you. And I do know Pau Gasol. His brother Mark won the championship with the Raptors.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Which is my basketball team. Sean says, I honestly think it's a good idea to Astro bid specific cards at this very moment in history. Maybe not something I would do in lean times, but we're obviously a fast rising mark right now. Yeah, I agree. You could have, every time you overpaid for a card in the last year, like a Hall of Fame rookie or something good, you now go, if you overpaid, you are now looking like you got a bargain on it. So definitely, I like this comment. Learning how to ignore idiots. Learning how to ignore idiots.
I have to say,
it's a vital like skill. It's a tough one at times. Yes, I agree. Hey, that trick works good. The flick I think you're talking about, very, very nice. Thank you so much. Best is when you Astro bid and win it for 25%. That happened to me not too long ago. I have a box. See that box right there? That's a box filled with cards that I get shipped to my US mailing address, and it just got to me yesterday. I haven't opened it yet. There's a card in there that I bought at the end of December and this was an investment and a collectible piece. It's a Ray Bork Topps rookie. And I bought it. I put in a bid. I'll just tell you the card. It's a PSA 10. It's a Pop 7. And the bid was at like $2,000-something. And I wanted the card. I put in a bid of, I think, $6,000, and I won it. I won the right to buy it for $4,700. You can still see it on eBay probably. I forget the exact price. But when I won it for, say, 47 and I was willing to pay 6,000, right away I felt like I was up $1,300. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand how money works. I understand I wasn't up anything. But in my mind, I was willing to pay up to 6,000 and I only had to pay 4,700 for it. There was already an intrinsic value add of $1,300 for me in that card. And I bought it for just under $5,000, knowing in my mind, with all my experience in the hobby, that it's a $15,000 card. And I believe it is. That's why I was willing to pay $6,000. I probably would have paid even more if the current bid was higher. Anyway, that's my point, is that, yeah, when you Astro bid and win it for a lot less than you were willing to go, that's a win right out of the gate there.
Well, it's like,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, it's kind of like when you go to the mall and then it's 40% off or 50% off. And then all of a sudden you think you're getting a deal. You're still spending $200 for that jacket. But because the price was $350, or they say it was, and then reduced it, then you get that sense of value.
Which is a bit different than the example I said, because unless what you're saying is you go to the store, you take that jacket to the cash register, you say, here it is, I'm willing to pay $350 for it. And they say, oh, surprise, it's 40% off. You're like, oh, wow, I can now take $150 and go buy myself a shirt too, or something like that.
I think it's the psychology they use may be similar, like the psychology of like, hey, but remember, you're saving this money because last week it was this amount. So maybe it's just setting that expectation of this is what the price was. You better get it now because it's $100 less. So I think it's more like the justification of how people would say, okay, now I have that extra $100 to put somewhere else, even if they didn't know what the price was the week before. It's like kind of like, all right, well, now I'll get this pair of pants as well.
Yeah.
It's related, but it's not the same.
Well, the difference is that you're willing very happily to pay more, and then you get it for cheaper, and it's a surprise. That's the difference, right? Hockey. Am I the only person that doesn't understand why people flex their cards on social media? For me, I don't need likes to validate what my collection means to me. I think you're just, I mean, I don't know if you're the only person that doesn't understand it, but the hobby is fun. People are proud of their collections and they want to share them and show them off a little bit because they're proud of them. It's, it's one thing to have a great collection and never show them to anybody. But if that's what gets you off, all the power. I'm not somebody that flexes my collection, but I will show a card that I know is worth a significant amount of money, and I'm not gonna feel bad about it because I love the hobby, I love my collection, and I want to share it with people who care. That's why people do it. It's not a matter of not understanding it, hockey, but I certainly am not critical of it at all. Now, if you're showing one card every day, maybe time for a new card. But I have no problem with people sharing their collections. And if it's a bunch of $10,000 cards or a bunch of $10 cards, doesn't matter. Are you only critical of people that do it with $10,000 cards, but not of $10 cards? Like, I don't know. I don't have an issue with it.
I think my take with that is that it's the intent behind it. It's either I'm sharing this cool card I have, or I'm showing off like an ego thing where some people buy BMWs because they love the performance. They grew up idolizing the manufacturer and the design and all that. And other people buy it because of the status points associated with it. And I think that's where the big difference is what's the intent of you showing the card? Is it, hey guys, I saved up and I'm proud to show you this new card. What do you guys think? Or is it like, look what I got, you don't have this? And that all boils down to, the intent and where you're at.
100. Yeah, I agree with that completely. I had a thought there. I just lost it though. I'm going to check in on the subscribers. Now we've got like over 80 people watching my YouTube channel, Sports Cars Live. We are right now sitting at 1,995 subscribers. We're 5 away from 2,000. So if any of you watching are not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button, but don't just hit it and not come back and watch again in the future. Hit it and come back and be a quality subscriber, please.
And if you have another Google account, log into that Google account in a separate tab and subscribe there.
My wife said to me, I was talking when I was maybe close to 1,000. She's like, "Do you want me to subscribe?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't want you to subscribe. You're not a real subscriber.
Right,
I want real subscribers, Okay. John says, I think the large majority of collectors aren't posting their collections online, but I have to say I love seeing people's collections if they seem genuinely appreciative of what they have, to have what they do. Yeah, 100% agree with that. It's all about making themselves feel good and validation. Nothing wrong with it, really. Partially that. But I mean, the funny thing is that, some sports card collectors like myself, now this is going to sound exactly what we're talking about, but just to get the point across, I could take 1 or 2 cards out of my collection and go buy a car that's nicer than the car I drive. I drive a car right now that's worth about $14,000, $15,000. It's a 2013 GMC Terrain. That's what I drive. It's paid off. I've had it since 2013. I could pretty easily go buy a car for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000 bucks from selling 1 or 2 cards. But I have no interest in trading my cards for a car. It's the furthest thing from my mind. So I could be driving around in a BMW or a Mercedes, maybe even a Ferrari or a Lamborghini if I sold a bunch of cards. Not interested. Zero interest in doing that. I want my cards. So at the same time, I do enjoy my cards and I'm willing to share them with people who are going to enjoy them if I know you're not going to accuse me of being a braggart, because it's not about being a braggart. It's about sharing. That's why some cards I won't share with certain groups of people, because I don't want to be seen as flexing. But if I'm with a different group of people that maybe have cards of those same values that like to share them too, I'll share that card with those people, because I'm not fearful that I will be accused of what this discussion is about.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, that's one dynamic I really noticed in the hobby is there is a lot of the status and the validation and just I want the cool card, right? Not necessarily a card I love or necessarily a good investment, and I think that's kind of where it goes with the Zions and the Lukas, and not that they're bad investments, but they are cool cards. And I think that those are like the flashy cards to have, where it's like, oh, you don't have a Zion. It's like, that's a staple of this year of 2020 of like I think there's a chance that Zion's Prism rookie card goes down as more iconic than him as a player, depending on how it pans out. Like that's pretty crazy, but there's definitely that possibility. So I think it always boils down to like, what's your intent behind it? Is this the card you want for yourself? Do you feel like it's a great collectible or a great investment? Or are you, if you're really honest with yourself, are you really getting it because your friends are kind of giving you a hard time that you don't have one, or you really want to post it on social media and fit in a way? Because, remember, there's a lot of 12 to 25-year-olds that are flooding the hobby, especially in that, like, I live here in LA where it seems like everyone is 16, well, maybe not 16, like 18 to 28, where there's the Lambos, there's the Rolls Royces, there's the BMWs. Everyone is flexing, and I feel like that's kind of like the world it is in sports cards in that realm.
I actually have more respect for the people that don't have the Zion rookie, because it tells me that and it's not a matter of respect. I just admire it more if you don't have the Zion rookie, because it tells me that you're taking a longer term approach. And so you're not necessarily just going to buy into the hype. I don't have a Zion. I've said it several times. I'll wait for a player to develop for a couple of years, make sure they're worthy of my collection. There's a lot of hype over Alexi Lafreniere for the New York Rangers, the first overall pick. A lot of hype over him. Hadn't played a game. He's now played 4 games. Hasn't hit the score sheet yet. Everyone who's paying big money for those cards are probably a little panicky right now. Is he going to be a bust? No. Hockey players just take longer to develop than basketball players, as an example. So I admire people that don't have that Zion and are waiting to make sure that he's worthy of the collection. Chances are he will be, but we don't know for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of players, I think, like Vince Carter, and there were players that were like not all time, but they were like really good. Like Vince Carter is probably one of those, like, you're not Kobe level, but you were like long career and very good. And it's like, it's just too early, but to pay the prices that you would assume that you're going to be at that level is just too risky as an investment. If you love the player, you love watching him play, you go for it. But
that's why there's been so much of this consolidation into GOATs talk, because people are getting smarter after maybe learning from some of their, I don't want to call them mistakes, but experiences in 2020.
Yeah.
I like it. So Sean says, I don't think anyone likes someone flexing in your face and lording it over you, but what real collector doesn't love other people's collections too? You only love your own collection? Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's fun to share these things with each other. I'm all about that. Canadians sell their football cards for too cheap. Well, that's good for the Americans buying them, right? I mean, and that's like, that's basically, it's a form of arbitrage, right? It's just working the different regions. I think that's fine. Sean says, yeah, if you're not in the Pokemon generation, I don't know how they can have that aura for you. I missed said generation. Yeah, I missed the generation 2. Again, I out of FOMO bought some cards. I bought them just before they totally popped. They came down and probably doubled my money if I were to sell them. The total investor talk, I'm okay with it. I'm allowed to invest in cards. But yeah, the nostalgia just wasn't there. Jordan says to both of us, how do you approach listing cards via auction? Buy it now when you sell on eBay. That's a whole, I don't want to get into that right now, Brad. That's a whole real episode on its own. So we're gonna skip by that one for now. Sean says, many Americans sell their hockey cards for too cheap. There's more of that arbitrage compared to Canadians, but it seems that window is closing, which I think is true. Hockey's starting to really pick up.
Good.
Chow, welcome. The disturbance in the forest for the normal hockey cycle is this day trader aspect to Foley, Josh Anderson. Well said. Question from Brad. Let's see if we can, or from Jordan. Do either of you have any cool Dirk cards?
I wouldn't say cool, but I did buy some. I'm guessing Dirk Nowitzki. I bought a couple of his finest rookie cards. None of them were grade worthy, so they went. Actually, maybe a few of them were. In a year, I'll get them back from PSA. I don't know, but either way, I either sent a few of them in, or they all went to ComC. And then his first year select, I was buying that of a handful of players. They're not cool, but I like Dirk. I think he was a very likable guy. And one question I asked myself is, I wonder if Dirk will be maybe mentioned more with the emergence of Luka. Will Luka being there and his comparisons to Dirk and Dirk's run with the Mavs actually help Dirk's prices. I don't know the answer, but I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, fair. I have one Dirk card. I have his Topps Chrome Refractor that I picked up in 2019 because he's a great player, you know.
Likeable. I like Dirk. I think most people would like Dirk.
Yeah. Sean John says Toffoli. This is speaking about Tyler Toffoli, who was recently traded from the Vancouver Canucks to the Montreal Canadiens, and in the last 2 games scored 5 goals against his old team. And his cards have jumped right up from $5 to $25. Sean says it's absurd. Peter was happy to sell them. I say sell. That is an easy sell right now, because a lot of players score in bunches and then it doesn't happen again for a while. But if it does, it's not as exciting. Paul Stastny came out of the gate in like 2007 or 2008, whatever year it was, scored like 4, I don't know what it was. Let's call it 8 goals in 5 games. Cards skyrocketed. Now he's a common in most cases. So sell your Toffolis and buy them back a little bit later for much less than you just did. Sean says, I'm sure he's going to score at a 40-goal rate this year as like a 28-year-old or something. And if he does, that's great, but he has to do it for a couple of years to really sustain those values, I think. Tough to say. Sean, I know this feeling Jeremy is explaining right now so well. I don't know which one that was. That was already almost 15 minutes ago, but yeah, someone identified with me on that.
Yeah, whatever it is, cool.
Yeah, the thing is, your deal is still on the presumption the card is still worth much more. If not, it's not a. Oh, I see. It's not a savings. It's a lower price now than what you imagine it will be in the future. Well, if I'm right, what I was saying is I'm willing to pay $6,000 for a card. I think it's worth it. I'm willing to pay it, but I get it for much less. I feel like I'm already in the profit side of things, or my outlay is already, has excess value from what I paid. I know you both love your spreadsheets. Where did you get your hobby spreadsheets from, or did you make them from scratch? Go ahead, Brad.
Google Sheets. Learn how to piece together the simplest thing. I keep it as simple as possible. I mean, everything is just, I'm not like a master of all this stuff. I'm like sum, minus, and that's it.
Yeah. For me, I've been doing spreadsheets since spreadsheets came out. So they've just evolved over time. Simple as that. And I have a few that I keep on using and adding on to. Sean says, I admittedly don't have a huge collection, but somehow I can remember what I spent for every card I bought. I do not. I have a system that I use so that I can quickly find out what I paid for a card. That's like my proprietary system, which maybe I'll share one day. Sports Cards Live, the road to 2000. Let's see if we got any more since I last.
We're not getting off until it is 2000.
We got it. We got 3 more after I'm basically begging for subscriptions, which I'm not a fan of doing. But we're at 1998 now.
I saw a comment that says I signed up with my school account. I don't know how long ago that was. It might have been 15 minutes ago, but someone said like I signed up with my school account.
Yeah, I see that now. Charles, that's my buddy Charles, who just said I'm 2 comments away from that. Jordan, how many times have you seen that Bernie Sanders meme? I mean, I think today I saw it 100 times. How about you, Brad? It's everywhere.
Yeah, there's a just on Instagram. It's like sport card and then Bernie Sanders meme, and then that's the only thing on my feed.
But I guarantee everybody it'll go away in like a week. Don't worry about it. This thing is very temporary.
Yeah,
very temporary. Thank you, Charles. Although I want legit subscribers. I really do, but I'll take it. Cars depreciate in value. Cards not exactly why. Well, one of the reasons, but I just like cards more than cars. I'm not a car guy. I'm not a guy that ever bought a car for what I bought it for. If I like the looks of it, not for what was under the hood. I'm just not a car guy. It's just not what gets me. I'm cardboard. I'm all about cardboard. I imagine much of the hobby or people in the chat lean right, but I love Bernie. David G, welcome, says, Jeremy, maybe if you got into card collecting, you'd sell your cards to break in. Never. Will never happen. I guarantee it. Seb, my buddy Seb, says, we show cards on social media because we are happy to have them and want to show friends and community. I like to see on Instagram rare cards that I want or have not seen in years. Very fair. I'm with you on that 100%. A new card, this is Costa Rica. A new card is like a new toy. I love to share them with everyone. I am normally super excited to get it. You get the new present feeling. Fair, totally fair. Jeremy's cards are Lambo level. I mean, I have a few cards that are worth really good money, and I say that without trying. I'm not flexing. It's just the fact of the matter. I can't help it. I can't help that that's happened, thanks to the market. But I don't know about Lambo money, but you say things sometimes. Jose Canseco, more iconic than the player, the car. Yeah, I mean, I told the story about my Jose Canseco rookie on an episode a little while ago. Sean, who doesn't want to hear? Jeremy's exactly right. It's like this with young guns in hockey. Yeah, like I'm a Canucks fan, but I'm pretty sure those Pettersson and Hughes rookies are overpriced right now. I think Pettersson is he did score tonight, first time in 5 games. I think he's a great player. Like I would be buying him on the cheap right now, hopefully, because maybe they've come down in value since he got a slow start to the season. But players always get slow starts to the season, and things change as the season rolls on for sure. Hockey. Do you two plan on submitting to HJA? I've never heard of HGA. CGC. It's actually CSG for sports cards. Planning to, maybe.
I know what HGH is, and that makes you really strong. I have no idea what HGA is, So the way I see it right now is PSA, like your prior conversation. PSA, it may take forever, but right now that's just the security blanket of knowing I can liquidate and I can get the top dollar. The one thing is that with this power struggle, it looks like PSA is doing everything to widen that lead. And I'm just curious if Beckett or SGC or another company has something up their sleeve, like Gary V buying in or something that could radically bring them up to a close second. I just don't see it happening right now. So there's no point.
Nothing against Gary V, but I don't think he's the guy to buy. Beckett isn't for sale.
In terms of like influencing the perceived value, he's the only one I could see in the hobby that could have that power. But I'd love to hear if you have someone else that you think could like.
I don't. Nothing comes to mind right away except for PSA buying out, taking out Beckett, and maybe just having it as a discount brand or a value brand or a $100 value and lower, like a bulk brand maybe. But I think that PSA with their new ownership group, once that deal finalizes, and Nat Turner is the perfect person to head up PSA. I'm super excited about it, and I think that it's going to be tough for anyone to compete to the point where PSA loses their position as the best company out there, or the number one market share company.
Well, do you think it'd be realistic that PSA would buy out Beckett and turn that into another center? And like, all right, now we have 50 more or whatever amount of graders, 100 graders to be able to do this? Or is it?
My understanding is that Beckett isn't for sale. My understanding is that the owner of Beckett doesn't sell businesses. He has like 20 of them, and Beckett's just one of his big portfolio, and it's not for sale. That's what I've been told through the guests I've had and my connections in the hobby, if you will. A sharpshooter, which is what I call myself. I call myself a sharpshooter when it comes to buying cards because I'm very picky on what I buy. I sold so many cards way too early. I've learned not to sell early. Yeah, we have those regrets, man. I have some of the same regrets, man.
You know what I say is like, 6 months too early is still better than a day late. If it's one of those like short-term investments where it's like, hey, in August, and this is from more like the flipper mentality, like the Tyler Hero rookie cards that went through the roof because he burst onto the scene in the playoffs and Miami made that run, and then all of a sudden they got destroyed by the Lakers. Well, too early means you may have made profit that you could roll over. A day late means you're holding on, hoping that he returns. And so far, the Heat have not looked good.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I try not to play that game. I'm a long-term hold. I will ride the ups and downs, the waves, the ebbs and flows, the cycles that I've ridden in this hobby for decades already. I'm willing to continue to ride them out. I just know one thing. If the hobby corrects or adjusts or crashes, no matter what happens 10 years from now, I'm very confident cards will be worth more 10 years from now than they are today, no matter what happens in between.
That's also based on you picking the right players or like guys that you're very confident in versus the rookie. This guy had a great game, and where it's very short term and it's like going day to day, week by week. Versus like LeBron James, he doesn't have to win anymore.
You're right. I'm talking about blue chip holdings.
Yeah.
Investor talk. Yeah, that's what I'm talking. You're right. Topps made a Bernie card. I saw that. Thoughts on Topps now? I don't have any thoughts on Topps now. But I have a guest coming up on After Hours a couple weeks from now who got back into the hobby because of Topps now. So stay tuned for that, Jordan. We'll get into Topps now then.
explain to me what Topps Now is? Because I haven't heard of that.
It's direct from, it's buying moment cards, basically direct from Topps. Basically,
Like the NBA Top Shot?
No, these are actual cards that you get take delivery of. Yeah. Gotcha. Costa Rica, thank you for subbing with your other channel.
All right.
I mean, I really wish the Canucks kept Toffoli. Yeah, we wanted him in Calgary. Me and my buddies were hoping Calgary would get Toffoli because we know he's a great player. He's not a hobby love kind of guy, but he's a great player. Just playing, the Lambo peeps. It's all good, buddy. It's all good. I know. Jordan, any topics you wanted to discuss tonight that you haven't gotten to because of our 4 million questions? That's your best question of the night, Jordan. That just subbed on 2 accounts, 2K.
Yes, let's check it.
I don't want you to sub on 2 accounts. That's the thing.
Maybe it'll be 2004 or something.
You know what? It's still showing me 1998, but it's rounding up on the public view. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We'll take it.
Okay, we'll run through a few more comments here, Brad, and then we'll probably, I mean, it's 2 hours, man. This time goes by so fast. Like
it does, man. Yeah, it's fun though. And it's really cool going through so many comments because that's the fun part, man. That's the fun part, is like engaging with everyone and seeing what they have to say. There was one thing I wanted to ask you your opinion on, because it fascinates me, and I wonder if it fascinates others, and that is celebrity cards. As in, what I would love to have is a Matthew McConaughey rookie card from Dazed and Confused autographed. I would prefer that over 95, 98% of athletes, because I still follow Matthew McConaughey today. I still love him as an actor. And it's kind of like, if we love this about sports, and we could think about this with TV shows or, Pokemon or things like that. I know there have been some, but I was wondering your take on it, and if you think that's something that could be bigger in the future, where you have like an actor with his first breakout film, and it's like, who is this kid? But it's an autographed card that in 10 years, he's the next Leonardo DiCaprio.
I get older and they stay the same age.
All right.
I think you're onto something there. I've thought about it myself. Jay-Z has cards, Justin Bieber has cards, and
I saw the Jay-Z card today. That's what made me think of this.
Yeah, there's lots of entertainment. Upper Deck does a great job at entertainment cards. Billy Celio, who's been on my show a few times, he does a lot of entertainment. He builds a lot of entertainment products for them. For Upper Deck. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think that there's I'd collect certain actor cards, actress cards. John Travolta, one of my favorites. I'd collect guys. I'd love a Henry Winkler. I was a huge fan when I was a kid. I watched Happy Days After School every day. Yeah, I think I would love it, but I would want, and I'm seeing people start to talk about this already, believe it or not, and it's like, how do you define the rookie card? And it's funny, rookie is a sport term, not an actor term, right?
Yeah. So it could be like a breakout role,
maybe, type of thing. Well,
I mean, the other reason I thought about it was because if you heard Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's University of Miami PSA 10 sold for like 10,000 or 20,000 a few weeks ago, but I think no one cares about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the defensive lineman at University of Miami, and only a certain fraction care about his wrestling career. I know Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as this huge icon in pop culture and a huge action movie star, right? And I think that's where a lot of people grow to appreciate him. So that's where it was coming from. And that's where I'm like, man, I would love to get into that, because we follow these actors for 20 years, 30 years, and we get to know them in all these different roles.
40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Yeah. They have a lot longer careers than athletes too. The Dwayne Johnson card sold for a lot of money because he's iconic in culture, but he also has a football card. So very few actors and actresses have a football card or a sports card too. And so I think, but the fact that his card sold for so much, you're onto something in what you're thinking. So that might, if there are cards out there of big actors and actresses, then you might, maybe start looking at them.
Well, maybe Leonardo DiCaprio played water polo in high school or something, and there's like a little card of that out there. But yeah, it's something I think I'll look into myself, just because that interests me.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. I like this comment by Seb. Jeremy is not a car guy, neither a fridge guy. True that. True that. Let me tell you, I watched this guy work on my fridge the other day. It's like, I don't know what you're doing. I have no clue. Pressure here, pressure there. He's talking about, bro, just fix the damn thing. I just need my fridge to work. I got young kids here. People are going to move. People are going to move from PSA out of people are going to move from PSA out of necessity. Maybe on low value cards, high value cards, PSA will continue to rule, I believe. I love that the SGC slabs. Yeah, personal preference. Brad Jarryd regarding PSA, what service level do you I mostly submit at the bulk service, but that was back then. Things are changing, so we'll see from now. Sean Johnson, 2K today, 200K a year from now, and then Jeremy has to spend 2 hours saying aloud the comments of the first 3 minutes of the show. Yeah. Well, Tyler Harrow rookie cards on Stars. Tyler Harrow cards on Stars are now more than they were during the bubble. Wow, he's proven to be good.
That's great. I know that was when his hype was the highest, was around the bubble. So I mean, that's great. I know it dipped a lot earlier this year. I'd have to check the prices, but that's awesome.
Yeah. Sharpshooter gives me some advice. The bubble will burst. Sell and pay for your kids' education. He who hasn't learned from the past is doomed to repeat it. All I've learned from the past, Sharpshooter, is that the cards I own go up in value over time. That's what I've learned from the past. If they go down in value, they will go back up in value. I've seen it since I started putting real money into cards, which was probably in the late 80s. I started putting hundreds of dollars into single cards back then, and they only go up over time. So I appreciate the advice, but I'm not selling.
I see it kind of like real estate, where historically over a long period, if you have a good piece of land that's overall desirable, just like a blue chip card, it'll ebb and flow up over 8 to 10 years. Real estate's hot. The economy has a correction, goes down, but it's still over time. If you outlast it, it'll go up. And I think with the cards that you focus on, you're very safe. All the other stuff, the flashy stuff, that's where it's extremely volatile.
Yeah, we just hit 2,002 subscribers. Thanks, everybody.
That's all legit.
Woo woo! We did it.
But don't unsubscribe from your second account. Just keep where it's at.
And no, don't go unsubscribe, right? I'll dip. It happened to me once before. I hit a big milestone, and then I lost 4 or 5. So what did I do wrong? Okay, where were we here? There's something I wanted to say about that last piece, but then I got distracted by the 2,000 subscribers. So thanks everybody for that. I do really appreciate that. We could wrap up pretty soon here, man. I'm starting to lose some steam. Big Unit says, congrats, great show. Congrats on it. Thank you very much, Big Unit. Much appreciated. Oscard, the Jeremy Lee, that sports card live guy, he has cards that would sort after in years to come. I don't understand the comment. He has cards that would sort after in years to come. The other thing I just want to say about, I've never been somebody who's been good at timing the market. If I sell something, it goes up in value. If I buy something, it goes I'm not talking about sports cards so much. So I don't trust myself to be able to time the market or to be able to predict when or if there's going to be a crash or a dip. Like the commenter that said it before, I forget who it was already, but Sharpshooter, the bubble will burst. Well, that assumes that we're in a bubble, number one. That assumes that we're in a bubble that can't be sustained, and that assumes that it will burst. 3 assumptions I'm not willing to make. But if you are, then play that game. Take your advice and do it. I don't share those assumptions with you. So I'm not saying cards are going to continue to go up at the rates they've been going up. That I don't believe. But I don't think we're going to crash. I think the foundation is stronger than it's ever been. The floor is higher than it's ever been. And my cards have gone up so much in value that they could come back and I'm still going to be doing fine. And I'm then willing to wait for them to bounce back again, whether that's 10, 15, 20 years down the line. My kids are 1 and 3. By then, maybe I will sell cards and pay for their education or buy them houses or whatever, or islands, whatever it may be at that time.
Well, there might be fractional ownership on one of those cards that you own in 15, 20 years where that'll buy a mansion and a college education. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. The Rock for president. Imagine his card value for sure. Sure, a James Dean leather jacket patch card could be something for sure. As a fan of The Rock for wrestling more than his style of movies, I'm more into serious movies and blockbuster. If you smell what The Rock is cooking, I love it. Leaf already does a good, Leaf does a great job with their Pop Century stuff and their celebrity cards. Big kudos to them for those and the autographs they get and all that. Really good stuff. Yeah, people have said since 2018. I think he's talking about that the cards are going to come back down. I mean, people have been predicting a crash for so long. Anyway, I'm willing to ride it. I'm willing to ride that wave. I always have been.
I think the one thing with this versus like other industries is, man, there's a fun element that people just want to be a part of it. I think the fun, because it's not just business, it's not just like a cash grab. It's like there's a really fun element that people just want to be a part of. So I feel confident that the fun will keep people in regardless of if they're making the most profit or whatever else. But of course, like back in July, August, things were doubling every 2 weeks, and you're like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to continue, period. You can't double over and over and over again in a 6-week period.
Yeah, no, you can't. And that is not sustainable long term. But here's a comment. Sharpshooter says Gary V is the bubble. See, I don't think Gary V is the bubble. I think collectors are the bubble, because collectors are the foundation of the hobby, and collectors are driven by nostalgia. Sports cards have been around for over 100 years. They've been loved for over 100 years, whether they were worth the paper they were printed on or whether they're worth thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. They're still loved. I'm not saying Gary V has no impact on the market. I'm not naive. I'm naive in some things probably, but I recognize that Gary V has an impact on the market with a single tweet, but I don't think he's the bubble.
Yeah.
I think the bubble, a lot of people that he's brought into the hobby are going to stay because they're going to love the hobby. Some aren't, though. Rob G, who bought the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle for $5.2 million. He got in because of Gary V and some other guys, but he's not going anywhere now. He loves, he's just engrossed by the hobby. I saw him interviewed on Cardboard Chronicles, engrossed by the hobby. So Gary V, I don't know if he's the bubble, but he's definitely got an impact on the market. I have to admit to that.
To me, he's a loudspeaker. He's an amplifier. He sees something small that's happening, and he can make it bigger because he has 10,000 people that listen to him and will just go off of any word he says. Even if it's just an opinion, they'll be like, it's an opinion, but now I'm going to go in. So the influence is there for sure, but yeah, saying he is the bubble, I'd be very curious to see if I could get all the, the amount of people that are in, what percentage are dialed into every word he says and is following him versus I got in and he's someone I follow along with many others, but I followed his stuff way before sports cards. It was more just like life, marketing. That's the kind of stuff that interested me before he talked about sports cards. So I wish we had that statistic. I'd love to know, like 8% of everyone in is highly linked to Gary V, and 92% have been in for a while, have no idea who he is, know who he is, but don't really care. But I'm more optimistic that he amplifies things, but it's not to the point where it could crumble because of anything he says either.
Yeah, no, fair stuff. And I mean, I remember Gary saying in early 2019, he said, Topps Chrome LeBron James rookies PSA 10 are going to be a $2,500 card by next year. They were like $1,300. Well, he was wrong. That card went from $1,200 to $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000, back down to $10,000, and now they're in the high 20s. So, he sees things in advance. He's got some vision. He's a trend spotter, and I highly respect that. But he's not only in sports cards, and I don't think he's looking to blow up the market, sell everything he has, make millions of dollars, and leave the hobby. I don't think he's that. I just don't think that he's really trying to damage the hobby economy like that. I think he really likes the cards. And he can't help it that he has this great reach. He does.
I mean, that's what he studies. That's what he does. Like, he was talking about TikTok in the same way. Guys, get on TikTok. This is going to explode. And guess what? TikTok exploded in the same way. Now, like, it's not something you buy into in the same way as cards. So you don't think of it as like a TikTok bubble. But he was saying the exact same thing. Like, guys, There is a lot of attention on TikTok. If you post something, it could go viral way easier than on Instagram. But, because there's not money being transacted, it can't really be considered a bubble. But he sees these things. This is his world. So he sees the movement and he's like, piece 2 and 2 together. This is going to be the thing that pops next, just like the email marketing and the YouTube and the Google AdWords and everything else that he's done prior. So I give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of his intention, because I've never seen anything he's done and thought to myself, I don't think you have pure intentions. He's earned that from me over time, but I've also followed his stuff for years and gained a lot of value from him to the point where he's earned the benefit of the doubt there.
In your personal development, right? That's the thing that that's how I perceive him, is he's just out there doing what he loves. And I think he loves the hobby, and the other thing is that a lot of the people that he influences, I like to think that people think for themselves. I know not everybody does, but those are people that if they're buying and prices are being inflated that way, that's all right. They're going to come, maybe they'll come back down a little bit. That's okay. It's probably healthy. Let's get to a more reasonable level so that we can then build up again, bring in more collectors who have the nostalgia bug, they have the collector's gene, and then we can slowly build up again. It's this up, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 forward, 1 back. Over time, the hobby goes in that direction. A couple quick comments here. Jay says, what do you think about Muhammad Ali cards? Yeah, I think it's a good investment. If that's what you want, I'd like to have 1 card to represent his career in my collection. I don't think I have one right now, but I do have some boxing cards. Peter wants to know, did I open my Vesna box? I did not. It is sitting up there behind me. I have not opened it yet. Would love there to be a music card set. There, Leaf put out a music set called Music, or it was maybe it was a different company, put it out a few years ago. Sharpshooters. So what scares me the most is sports card prices are so easy to manipulate. I agree. They're easy to manipulate, but you can't, okay, 2 things. You can manipulate a couple cards at a time, maybe if you have a ton of money and you can just go buy every card that exists. The other thing that's happening right now that I think people are confusing with manipulation is that fractional ownership companies and private equity funds. By private equity funds, I mean alt and other private ones where people are putting together pools of $20 million and spending that money because they have to fill their orders. They have to spend that money and deploy those funds in accordance with their offering documents. I've seen these things. They're out there buying cards, and those cards aren't going to just be released into the market right away. So a lot of what people think is manipulation, or it can't be real. Mario Lemieux PSA 10 rookies going from high teens to $60,000. It's not manipulation. It's big money buying up these assets because they see value in them. I don't know anyone that's manipulating that card at 60 grand a pop. Now, maybe I'm naive. Maybe there is someone out there with $1 billion doing that, but billionaires don't need to manipulate the sports card market. I don't think.
I mean, it's funny living here in LA where the average house is 600 grand. And I'm like, you mean the best card ever just sold for what is a nice, like a mansion, but a nice house here. But before that Mickey Mantle auction, I'm like, this is a very small industry compared to just LA real estate, where it's like, 2.2 million, 4.6, all that kind of stuff. And so I think when a card sells for such a high price, there is an effect. There's a big effect psychologically from like, okay, this is real. This should elevate this. But when I hear the word manipulate, I tie it to intent a lot. I think manipulation to me is just, it's something you're trying to do to deceive or get something from others. So maybe it's just my definition of the word manipulation, but I just don't like to think of it that way. I think of it as they see the investment, they buy for this price. It's the highest price because they believe it's going to be more. There will be a cause and effect, but and there could be a manipulative intent, but I couldn't label any action that way unless I really saw something that backed it.
Yeah, fair. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask you to stop the comments for a minute because I want to get to the bottom and we got to wrap up. I know it's tough. And I appreciate
2.5 hours.
I know, man. I know you're not used to these long ones.
Dude, I'm usually in Reddit. I'm on the West Coast. Okay.
Yeah, you're lucky. Gary V has his hand into too many pies for my liking. It's something different every month. I mean, fair comment, Oscar Dad. My thing is that we're human, right? We're distracted by shiny pennies. With anything shiny, that's kind of just in our nature. And so I don't fault him for that, because I like new things too sometimes. But I get the point still. And but I think he has to be concerned about optics. And I don't know if he is or not, but I think he needs to be, and that might help his reputation among his skeptics. Costa Rica says, Brad, I love your show. Jeremy, I'm glad I found you through Brad's channel. You're now my second favorite channel. I'll take that, Costa Rica. Love the show, guys. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Really happy to have you. If Barstool gets into the hobby to the moon, I know that's a reference line, but I don't remember. It's okay. Oscar, there are spikes in card prices and quantity of sales based off of Gary V's flavor of the month. Yeah, for sure. They're temporary, though, for the most part. Yeah. Kick down. I'm glad Gary V chose sports cards instead of buying the Jets. Wise investment. Eric Stefano, spot on like usual. Jeremy, thank you. Eric, I don't know what that's in reference to right now, but I appreciate it. I'm forever behind. Terrible Wi-Fi in this room. Gary V loves to be right more than anything. His reputation depends on it. Fair comment. Yeah. Kick down. There are also tools at your disposal to research and see if there's blatant manipulation. There aren't ways to hide it very well. Stock market, not so transparent. Fair. Sharpshooter. Last comment we have here too, Brad. Yeah, but why can't they buy them for what they're worth? Who else is bidding on cards that can be bought for much less? That's not the point. You can't buy them for much less because there's other people bidding you up.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a business getting in, why would you? You wouldn't say, it's like adding, here's a $2 million tip. No. Well, we wanted to buy it at $5 million, even though we're the highest bid at $3 million. From a business standpoint, if you're one of these fractional ownership companies or just the person buying it, Rob G, it's like, fine, I'll get it at $3 million, and now hopefully it'll be worth $5 million versus paying $5 million and hopefully it's worth $7 million in a few years. I mean, that's the whole point of an auction, right?
People believe in cards as assets. It's just the way I do. I believe in them as assets. I have my whole life, though. I've always, ever since that first Beckett magazine came out, and it clicked to me that my cards were worth money. And that was like, 87, 88, something like that. Ever since then, I've believed in my collection to be an asset. I've been in the minority my whole life. Friends, family, kind of, what are you doing? How much did you spend on that card? $2,000. What? You spent $2,000 on a card? I did. And it's not like I did it thinking it'd be worth 20 or 30 or 40 or 50,000. I did it thinking, I'll make 50% over time. I'll sell it on my deathbed for $3,000, $4,000. Hopefully I beat inflation. That was one of my ever intention, was only to beat inflation, because it would at least mean that I wasn't wasting my money or I like my expenditures to end up on my balance sheet, not on my income statement. And my cards sit on they're not expenses to me. They are assets that sit on my balance sheet. I do have some that probably don't deserve to be there because I buy them because I like them, not because they're going to be worth money down the road. But that's because I'm a collector too. I'm a collector and an investor. I live on both ends of that spectrum. So I'm somewhere in the middle, maybe bang in the middle. I might be perfectly in the middle, actually. Thank you, Charles, for the comment. Great to have you as always. Okay, Brad, listen, let's wrap up. Final comments from you, then final comments from the crowd, then we're done.
It's been awesome joining you tonight and having you on my show last night. So guys, if you haven't seen my interview with Jeremy on the Comeback Card Investor channel, make sure to check it out. I'm not nearly as good of an interviewer as Jeremy is, and I'm definitely more of a morning person. So I was having a lot of brain farts last night, but Jeremy brought a lot of great points and great topics. But this is great, man, because I'm learning so much from you and the others in the community, and it's just been a lot of fun. So thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's what I like about you. You're here to learn. You're a learner. That's obvious just by the books you read and being open to learning. That's why I respect you and glad to call you a friend. Can't wait to meet you in person hopefully I can cross the border and get to the national when that happens. And the same thing goes out for everybody watching right now, whether we've agreed on things or disagreed. I don't care. I still want to meet you guys, shake hands, whatever. I'll have a dinner, have a beer, that kind of thing. It's all good. So thanks everybody for joining us. We got Sean saying, wonderful show, a lot of fun. Brad proved himself very likable and knowledgeable guy. I'm glad to bring Brad to my audience and glad to have some of Brad's audience here watching this show. Hope to keep you guys as viewers and subscribers. Go Bucks. Thanks, both of you. Thank you. What's his name again? Costa Rica?
Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. Great to have you. Eric, great to have you as always. Everybody else, guys, thank you so much. I'm back on Wednesday, special Wednesday episode with Edward, who runs Investacard, who just partnered up with Marcus Lemonis, one of my, the guys I admire the most in the world from a business perspective. Edward just partnered up with Marcus Lemonis, who is the star of the CNBC TV show, The Profit. I recommend you watch that show if you like watching good dudes do good things.
Smart dude, too. Very smart guy.
Very smart guy. Just he simplifies things. It's like, oh, that's obvious.
He cuts to it. Yeah, he cuts to the chase. He just has that mentality. He just sees it. He sees it. He's great.
He fixes businesses. He goes and fixes businesses, invests in them, fixes them. He approaches things, the 3 Ps: product, people, and process. That's what he uses. And I've taken those to my business life and applied them to my company. And so anyway, not that I'm having him on the show. I wish I was having him, but I'm having his new partner, Edward.
Maybe in a year's time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to have him on my main show coming up on Wednesday. And then next Saturday, I got Brett McGrath, who's got an awesome podcast called Stacking Slabs. And then 2 Saturdays from now, Mike Fruitman, kind of a famous card shop owner in that he's been around for a long time. A lot of people know of him. He runs Mike Stadium Sports Cards out of Colorado. So he'll be on with me 2 weeks from today. All right, man. Thanks again, Brad. Great to hang out with you 2 nights in a row. We did a hangout kind of off camera too, which was fun. So it's been great getting to know you and everybody else. Thank you, Oz Card Dad. Great to have you as always. Don't sell yourself short, Brad. I'm all the way saying that. Pura vida. I don't know what that means, Thomas, but I know it's good stuff. So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I know it's good.
I know it's good. Pura vida. Okay, we're signing off, everybody. Brad, hang tight 1 second. Everybody else, good night. Thank you all for tuning in. This was a ton of fun. Great night. We'll see you all on Wednesday and Saturday after that. Thank you, Ray-Ban. Got that last second.